All right. So, you guys can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. My dog doesn't start barking. Phantom Greyfire says, cue the I'm actually on time excuse. Phantom Greyfire. So let's get apologies out of the way first. Because Phantom Greyfire is here. I thank you for your reminders, your constant reminders to respond to your email. Thank you very much for all of the timestamps that you gave me. Dude, I appreciate that so much. As for the video, I have a more in-depth response to the video. I did enjoy it. I'm going to email you back after the stream, I swear. I have more in-depth response to the video. If you can just wait till then before sharing, please, that'd be nice. But, yeah, I just wanted to type a little more in-depth response because I liked it, but I got a couple thoughts. Morge, read Kingdom, Connor Shirar says, Morge, read Kingdom and mod me or its gloves. I'm actually not, not too far off from picking up Kingdom again, because I read the beginning little arc, and then, there's a bit of a time skip. Tom Clayton says, you can't use your dog as an excuse. Here is my excuse. Here's my excuse. My excuse is that I was searching, so right now, I am at my parents' house. I'm back in my, hometown for Thanksgiving. Morge hair lol. Yeah. Look, back in my hometown for Thanksgiving, I was searching for the Ethernet cable that I know is here. I did not bring my own because I know that there's an Ethernet cable here. And guess what? I didn't find it. So, I was pretty late. And at the end of the day, we're going to deal with the Ethernet-less stream. I think it'll be fine. Tom Clayson says, it's a good thing you can't see dislikes anymore, bucko. Good point, Tom Clayson. Like the stream. Everybody like the stream. Let's get some likes in here so that we can get a few more people into the, I guess, what do we call this? A stream? I don't know what else to say. I was trying to think of something else besides stream. But yeah, kind of just getting more people in the stream. Let's all like the stream. I'll even like the stream, and I never like the stream. I'll open it up in a new tab. Actually, I won't because that'll probably crash it because we don't have Ethernet. Golden Row says, what's good, Morge? Let me mod Golden Row real quick. Guys, Golden Row is a YouTuber, a up-and-coming YouTuber. He does all sorts of different videos. He does One Piece. We did a One Piece podcast recently. He does One Piece. He does... I don't even know. He does like a million things. I don't remember off the top of my head. MF Bond 1 says, you look nice, Morge. Glad you're in your bathroom anymore. I don't even know what that means. Joyboy says, can you see my words? Yeah. The bathroom must have good connection. This is not the bathroom. This is my parents' basement. This is not the bathroom. I'm here for Thanksgiving. Leave me alone. Yeah, I know the video's public. I don't care that the video's public, dude. But my thoughts on the video, yeah. Or if I'll shout it out or whatever, Ava Soyet says, do you still think the raid will fail? Act 3 could be ending soon since Hiyori showed up. So for an act to end, it's gotta, you need to reach a closing point in terms of the story, right? You need to reach you don't just throw in an act end in the middle of things going on, right? If you're in Enies Lobby, you wouldn't put in an act ending right between Sanji and Zoro's fights or something like that. That wouldn't really make sense. So in general, act endings signify a significant chunk of the story ending and the closing of a lot of I guess you could say plot threads or events, and then the start of a new phase of plot thread and events, right? So in general, Hiyori being there means that there's potential for the act to end, but it would be really, really weird if the act ended next chapter, at least to me, because it's just very arbitrary. Why would you... There's no closing point or anything it's a lot of stuff happening and then randomly throwing in an act end doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. If you look at the previous act endings, there was a clear, demarcation between the before and after, right? So end of Act 1. Act 1 was Luffy's first day in Wano, right? It was getting the ball rolling for the general events of the storyline. It was kind of setting up everyone where they needed to go, right? Everyone gets their costumes. Luffy gets thrown in prison. It sets the scene, right? Act 2 is obviously all of the storyline with us inside, Wano, Flower Capital, Udon, etc., right? Tracking all the characters during the setup phase, right? It's the setup phase leading to the battle, and then that's when you end the act, when it's time to go into battle. So there's no reason to have an act end in the middle of a battle, unless there's like a significant change of events or something like that. Yeah, I know, the mic, blah, blah, blah. Benhort says, I disagree with your politics video. I don't think OP is equally left and lib right. ANCAPs like Kaido and BB are clearly villains. I think revolutionaries are supposed to be the commies, and they are good guys. So that video had more nuance than that, I believe. Right? Like, you know, if you want to go into, like, anarcho-capitalist or whatever, like, yeah, like, just running around stealing people's shit and stuff is crazy, but One Piece does still, it has undeniably strong libertarian themes. It just also has very strong, like, you know, themes of equality, arguably, I guess you could argue for some degree of socialism or equal wealth or social democracy. Socialism is probably not the right word. I'm a little rusty on my politics since I haven't had to take government politics since college, and that video came out like a year ago. But you can't deny that One Piece has strong themes on both ends of the spectrum. I would agree that it doesn't, you know, lock itself into specific ideas like anarcho-capitalism, which is obviously a very dangerous ideology, at least to me. But you think revolutionaries are supposed to be commies and they're the good guys. One Piece has a lot of emphasis on autonomy and the importance of autonomy and the importance of not having, you know, to a degree, it plays both sides in a way in that it emphasizes the romance of the pirate's life of not bowing to a greater authority. So it is very, you know, anti-authority in a sense, right? But at the same time, it stresses the importance of a society that has a well-functioning government, that has a lot of, you know, equality, distribution of wealth, tries to eliminate as much of a class system as possible, right? So if you watch the video, you understand where I'm getting at in that, like, it praises both sides for certain aspects and kind of provides an ideal idea of, like, well, these aspects should be present or we should be able to move towards these aspects in society. But at the same time, for people who do not want that, these aspects are, you know, what would represent an ideal society instead. So it definitely has, you know, two sides of the spectrum. I think it's impossible to read One Piece and deny that, you know, both sides exist, because that is the difference between what it claims is good for the sea. So what is the ideal pirate life versus what is good for the average citizen who lives in, you know, land-bound nations. Pat Kali says, Yo Morge, have you ever read Zatch Bell dog reveal? I've revealed the dog on past streams. I revealed the dog on past streams. And you guys like the dog better than me, so I'm never showing him again. I think longtime stream viewers have seen the dog more than a few times. Zatch Bell, I've never read it, but I've seen the anime. It used to come on Toonami, and I used to get, like, pretty excited about watching it. And then I think I only ever got to watch a couple episodes because Zatch Bell looked really cool, and I think maybe it was just on past when I was awake, or just things didn't line up right. But I never really got to, like, get into Zatch Bell. TCB scans, why aren't you modded? What is going on? Assuming these are the real TCB scans. Oh, yeah, no, you're definitely modded. I mean, you're definitely the real TCB scans because you're referencing something that we talked about. So, TCB scans brought up my experiences watching the Cowboy Bebop live action. So, a friend of mine actually watched the Cowboy Bebop live action, and he reported to me that he didn't like it. So then I went and watched the Cowboy Bebop live action because I just had to see. I asked him for his review, and he gave me the review, and he really, really didn't like it. And I trust his opinion. But I just had to see in some way. I had to take a look at what it's like because I just wanted to get an idea, you know, because the One Piece live action being done by the same studio, I just wanted to get the idea. So I checked it out. Let me respond to these super chats real quick, and I'll give you my thoughts on the Cowboy Bebop live action because it might surprise you. It might surprise you. I'm not going to say it's good, but I also think that I'll get into it in a second. Aslan, good to see you. Remember that video on Sanji having a different type of observation haki which would hide his presence? Do you still believe in that? Let me think. So, at the moment, the reason I believe that was strongly because Shiryu has it, Sanji has it. Shiryu has invisibility, Sanji had invisibility. It seemed like there needed to be a way to make invisibility a viable power in the One Piece world, because with observation haki, it just isn't. Right? You have characters like Fujitora who can't see anyone at all, but are able to function perfectly fine because they have observation haki, right? Now, I believe that no matter what, Sanji needed some type of power-up over the course of the Wano arc, and I wanted it to be something that's more him, that's more unique to him. I didn't feel like the raid suit, because it was sort of an external thing that was just given to him, even though it only works for Sanji, right? Still, I felt like the raid suit, something more than that was perhaps needed. That's why I pushed the idea of observation haki. Now, it does seem like the Germa enhancements, the pure, bodily enhancements that Sanji is sort of developing, those seem to be significant buffs on their own, right? So because those are significant buffs on their own, it does raise the question of like, okay, then does Sanji need to improve his Haki over the course of the arc? I don't think he needs, I think he's past a point where he would need to improve his armament Haki, for example. Reason being, the things that armament Haki provides, which is extreme increased durability and defense, as we saw from, Scratchman Apu this last chapter. So increased durability and defense and increased attack force, those are things that the Germa enhancements provide. So I would still hope that Sanji improves his observation Haki because it's the one branch of Haki that he can improve that still feels somewhat unique to him. Sorry, the air conditioning just came on and we don't have the mic today, so that'll just be in the background. Now, I still feel like observation is he doesn't really need to improve armament, I think. So if observation, I don't know if he's going to get Conquerors, I still won't bet on it. So I think that observation, that kind of leaves it as the type to improve. And maybe he will not be improving on it in the way that I believed initially back when he had invisibility. Because now if he no longer has invisibility, then that's not important. But I still hope he grows in some sort of unique branch of observation Haki. Yeah, people want to make fun of the Cowboy Bebop live action. We'll talk about that in a second. Aslan says, Aslan says Zoro needs King's race as racism wins fights, Morge. Dude, the Zoro, you can't even write this shit. Like, Zoro literally doubling down on the race memes that that everybody is already talking about. Everybody's already making fun of Zoro for being a racist, and the very next chapter, he's literally talking about how race is so important to him winning this fight. Mr. Crescent says, hey Morge, just want to say that I've been watching your videos for about a year now and love your videos and keep up the good work. Thank you very much. I appreciate you, Mr. Crescent. Red X says, Morge, you should read that spell. It's a fun read. I might give it a try. You guys want to hear my lineup right now? So JoJo Land I had to take a break on just because things got very busy, and it's a series that I kind of want to binge a little bit, right? So I took a break. I'm about halfway through. So JoJo Land I want to catch up. I do want to catch up on Kingdom. I want to reread Chainsaw Man because Chainsaw Man's so dope. And then besides that, I want to catch up on Record of Ragnarok. And I think that's basically it in the near future in terms of what I'm looking at. Oh, and then I want to catch up on Vinland Saga because it's now probably far enough along that I could get, some ways through the new arc. Now, Cowboy Bebop live action. Let me talk about that really briefly. Really briefly. People haven't heard about Racist Zoro? It's funny. It's a meme. Check it out on Twitter. You'll find it there. What was I saying? I was saying something. Yeah. Cowboy Bebop live action. So, getting rid of spam. The mobs are doing a great job. It looks like it. I see a lot of stuff being deleted. Anyway, Cowboy Bebop live action. Aslan says, Aslan, stop it. What are you doing? Why are you spamming? Stop that. Don't spoil me. Anyway, point being, someone delete Aslan's comments. Because I don't know if you're spoiling people or not. Aslan, delete your own comment. You're a mod. It's your job to delete your own spoilers and spam. Alright? Besides that, Cowboy Bebop, here are my thoughts. Alright, so, I told TCB Scans this. I thought Cowboy Bebop was a terrible adaptation of the anime Cowboy Bebop. If you were going in hoping for a faithful adaptation that captured the feel of the series, the tone of the series, that, adapted most of what made the series actually feel like something, really distinct, powerful, memorable, I'd say mature, strong air of melancholy. There's so many aspects of the original anime Cowboy Bebop that this adaptation was not even close to replicating, okay? Instead, it is a campy, corny, honestly kind of cartoonish, cheesy, TV series that is drawing strong inspiration from the world of Cowboy Bebop and pulling from that concept, but it's not trying to be a faithful adaptation. Now, that being said, I thought that it was going to be the worst show of all time based on what Twitter was telling me. Here's my thought. If you have never watched this show, Cowboy Bebop, ever before, pretend you've never heard of it, never watched it, okay? You've never heard of the anime, never watched it. If you go and watch the TV show, it pops up on your Netflix recommended, you watch the TV show, Cowboy Bebop the live action. I think there's a fair amount of people who would enjoy it. Okay? Reason being that even though a lot of the scenes are directed kind of stiffly and awkwardly, as though he doesn't really know exactly what he's doing, so the direction kind of it feels amateurish, especially, starting, I think literally the first scene, the opening scene is like a villain monologuing, and that whole scene feels really, really stiff and amateur. Like, it just does not feel like something professionally done whatsoever, okay? Even though that's the case, even though I think the dialogue is by far the worst part of it, the dialogue is ridiculously bad, corny doesn't even begin to encapsulate it. Jet's actor is made to say the word goddamn, I think, every other line, as though it's supposed to be impactful somehow, or like show he's like a rough and tough character. I literally don't even know why he says goddamn. Everything's goddamn. He's goddamn pickles or something like that. Spike, eat your no, I'm not gonna do impressions, alright? I was gonna go down a rabbit hole there that I don't want to go, because I'm trying to get to the positive point that I'm getting to, alright? Even though the dialogue was really, really bad, even though the direction was really hit or miss, sometimes I thought that they actually directed some action scenes in a kind of fun way, but for the most part, like, standard dialogue-to-dialogue scenes directed really poorly. Here's what I thought. If you went in with no expectations of what the show was, that stuff would kind of pale in comparison to the feel that, like, oh, this is actually, like, kind of a fun, whimsical series, like, a little wacky, zany. It's not like there's not really another, like, Netflix show that feels like fun sci-fi in the sense where it's kind of like, bounty hunters traveling through space, doing, getting into all sorts of shenanigans and stuff. I only watched like 70% of the first episode. 70%, I want to say, of the first episode. Didn't even finish the first episode. But it's got like a fun vibe to it, if that makes sense. And I think a lot of people who have never heard of the anime, so they're not comparing it to anything, would just think of it as like a somewhat, sometimes awkwardly directed and really shittily written, like in terms of dialogue show, but with some likable main characters. Maybe not fake, but with some fun, just a bit of fun television, especially if you have no concept of it before, then just the setting and the world is going to be kind of, interesting and exciting. So I think that this is a show that maybe works for people who have never seen the anime before and have, they're willing to lower their bar in terms of what they consider good dialogue or good, I guess, serious direction. Let's say the serious direction of the show was poor, but some of the action scenes were definitely enjoyable. And just the world, the setting, the tone of it, I think a lot of that can be enjoyable to a lot of people. It's a little zany in a way. Okay, so what does that tell me about the One Piece live action? Because that's where we're getting to. What that tells me about the One Piece live action is essentially that I don't want to put a downer on the One Piece live action. I think don't look for a faithful TV adaptation of One Piece. Look for something that draws from some of One Piece's plot elements and setting elements and stuff like that, and really tries to be its own thing that's just like appealing to a broader audience, right? Kind of like, again, I would say that Cowboy Bebop, it fell short of even The Witcher quality, but I think One Piece could hit The Witcher quality, which is like not a very high bar to hit, and it's realistic, and I think it can draw in new people, and then, they can go from that to trying the actual series One Piece and being like, wow, this shit's amazing, alright? Then it says, you said you were a political science major, I am too. Is this really a useless major like you said? Please tell me it's not true. Behenor, look at me right now. What am I doing right now this second? Does it look like I'm using my political science degree, or am I on YouTube talking about One Piece? Huh? What do you think I made a career out of? Huh? You think I came out of college and made a channel on government and politics? Look at me right now. Where's my political science degree right now? What have I done with it? Huh? What do you... You shouldn't need to ask this question. It should be fairly obvious. Alright, let's move on. Let's move along. What kind of a question was that? Absolutely insane, Behenor. Switch majors right now. Okay, if I want to be serious, let's say, no, political science is not useful, but if you want to be a lawyer or some shit, then yeah, go turn it into something like that. You need to take that degree and then swap, go take, you can still do a career that's useful, but the degree on its own is stupid. Keenan says, it might be a long shot, but Sanji will lose his emotions and he'll fight Zoro, and Zoro will wake him up by calling him Sanji for the first time ever in the manga. I know you're there type of a thing. Alright? I like the idea personally. That's a cool idea. I think that's a really cool idea. I think that at the very least, how do I say this? I have a preference for the idea that Pudding, ever since I saw this mentioned on Twitter, I have a preference for the idea that Pudding is going to be the one who brings Sanji back, simply because all of this started for Sanji in Whole Cake Island. This was a starting plot point in Whole Cake Island, right? So I would love to see that come full circle with the ideas from Whole Cake Island, essentially, like the plot threads or characters from Whole Cake Island and what Sanji went through in Whole Cake Island, coming back in Wano as well, or maybe even slightly post-Wano, I don't know. So I would love the idea that Pudding is the one who brings Sanji back to his former self, because Pudding is able to restore people's memories. We even saw Pudding steal the memory of her last kiss with Sanji. So there is something there that was really, really neatly set up at the end of Whole Cake Island. I would personally love if Oda did that, because I feel like that is the most... It feels like the most well thought out connection of ideas and setup and, you know, character relationships and dynamics and arcs between Whole Cake Island to Wano. It feels like the Sanji and Pudding storyline really has a lot of meaning in that sense, in that Sanji was the one to first help her find her true self, right? At the wedding, etc. And then, at the end of the day, Pudding is the one who then needs to take that sort of growth from Whole Cake Island for herself and be the one to bring Sanji back to his true self. I think that would be really, 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 really great to see. So I prefer that route. I think that Oda has it set up beautifully. Obviously, Pudding is not here. Obviously, it does not seem like Pudding is getting here anytime soon. But at the same time, things can happen. So I would love to see that. However, your idea of Zoro bringing him back to his true self by calling him Sanji, I think that is an excellent runner-up in my mind, in my book. I think it would give readers, you know, something that we've never seen before, definitely, and kind of be a nice new chapter in the Zoro-Sanji dynamic, which is, I think, even though many people, like, it's so funny because people hate, Zoro fans hate Sanji fans hate Zoro fans, but, like, I think a lot of people will point out that what some of their favorite moments in the series are those Zoro and Sanji moments. So even if you hate the other character, right, or the other character's fans, I think most people, like, still really like seeing those two come together, and I think that's the beauty of the dynamic that Oda set up between those two characters. I've never seen, can somebody help me out? Have you ever seen in another work of fiction two fan bases of characters hate each other as much as Zoro and Sanji? I think the only one I can literally think of, literally the only one, I think is, what were their characters? You know, the Twilight ones. The two Twilight ones. The Edward and the werewolf. I think those are the only two ones, right? If this was middle school, I'd remember this right away. Fun fact, I've actually read a Twilight book because they were so popular, like, everyone was, like, supposedly it was the next best thing. All the girls were reading it. I gave it a read. I didn't like it, but I didn't think it was, like, the worst thing in the world, but I was also in, like, 7th grade or something like that, so take that for what you will. But the werewolf character was not a character in that book, but Edward was. So I think that's a thing, right? Those two characters, right? Those two fan bases, they didn't like each other. All the girls were like, I like this one, or I like this one, right? I think Zoro and Sanji, that's the only other time I've seen something like that. I don't know any other shonen where, like, you know, it's not like Kurapika fans hate Killua fans with a burning passion. It's not like Vegeta fans hate Gohan fans with a burning passion. It's not like, you know, I'm trying to think of more. Like, do Bakugo fans hate Todoroki fans? Like, what other series has something like the Zoro and Sanji relationship? Roxas Vanitas 1. Is that Vanitas based off of that new anime that came out a little while ago? Do you think Lucci will appear in this arc? Lucci has appeared in this arc. Fun fact. Go check chapter... Shoot, I don't know the chapter number. Like, within the last 5 chapters, Lucci showed up. If you're saying, will he take an active role in this arc? I personally don't think so, unless... How do I say this? If shit goes south, as I personally hope it does, then I would love to see... Love to see... you know, CP0 and the Marines actually go on the offensive... Right, I didn't get the sense that Lucci was there in Wano, right? Maybe just giving orders. We didn't get proof that he's there in Wano. But I would love to see the Marines and CP0 taking the offensive to essentially try and go after Kaido and Big Mom if the protagonist side does not succeed in taking them down during the Battle of Onigashima. Now, the flip side that I talked about in my video, the 4 routes of the Marines, the idea that I like the best, if that does not play out, the idea that I like the best would be if the Straw Hats have defeated Kaido and Big Mom, right? Overthrown 2 Yonko, and the Marines tried to take Wano and claim it at the end of the arc, but then they realized that they literally can't, because there is a new Yonko crew that has claimed Wano. I would love it if the Straw Hats just threw a show of force, like the entire protagonist, like Straw Hats, Supernovas, Samurai, etc. alliance is just lined up at the beach, etc., or whatever, and the Marines realized that literally they cannot do this right now because they thought that they were going to come in, swoop in, easy pickings, take from a defeated, claim this island from a defeated Yonko who's been totally wiped out, and instead they're faced with a totally new Yonko crew. I think that would be really, really epic. I think that would kind of be a fitting way to prove Luffy's rise in the world and cement his status as a great pirate if he can make the Marines realize that they cannot take an island easily from this pirate crew. Like, the first island that essentially flying the Straw Hat flag means that it is off limits for the world government, because so far, so many other story arcs, Alabasta, Dressrosa, Enies Lobby, they all end with the Straw Hats having to run away from somewhere from the Marines. I think if Luffy and company defeat Kaido and Big Mom here, if they beat them right here in this battle, then I think it would be the perfect way to end it if they do not have to run, if they don't have to run this time, because they're no longer that pirate crew, right? They're an Emperor's crew. The same way that Shanks doesn't run from the Marines, Shanks shows up to Marineford and tells the Marines that you guys need to quiet down. That's the kind of energy I would love to see for Luffy and his crew at the end of the arc. Steven Bracano says, there's emphasis on the crescent moon, but this battle has a full moon. A crescent moon would be 2 weeks from now, which matches Hawkins' prediction. It fits for imagery in the actual final battle. Steven Bracano! You became my best friend for this stream. I'm a big fan of anybody who adds more ammo to the idea, let's say the fact, that the raid is going to end in failure. I would love to see that. I would love to see that. Red X agrees with me on the Sanji thing. Pudding works best for this scenario. I agree. 100% agree, Red X. Of course I agree. That's why I said it. Aslan says, do you think Zoro will cut Onigashima in half? Aslan, you have an obsession. You have an obsession. How many times have you asked this? How many times have you asked this? Oh, Edward and Jacob. All right, I was going to say Edward and Jake, but I stopped myself because I was like, I know it's not Jake. I was like, Edward and the other one. I knew one was Edward, obviously. It's well known. In my head, I was like, the other one, its name was Jake. But I was like, no, it's not Jake. It's not Jake. So I'm just not going to say anything. Because I don't know for sure. I just know it's not Jake. All right, Aslan. Let's settle this once for all. Do I think Zoro will cut Onigashima in half? I guess I can't settle it once and for all because I literally don't know. I don't have a good answer for you. Do I think Zoro will cut Onigashima in half? I'm going to go out and say no. That is not something that's on my radar. I don't think that it is necessarily Zoro's big moment to cut Onigashima. Here's the reason why. All right, if you want a reason, rather than me just saying I don't think. I think usually it comes down to these big climactic sort of finales to fights, right? I did a whole video on it. One Piece fights analysis. Well, the ending section is on this. The way Oda likes to end arcs is usually with a really climactic, visually symbolic final blow by Luffy, right? Destruction of Arlong Park, ringing the bell, punching Crocodile out from underground, out into the open, exposing his lies, etc. Doflamingo, heaven to earth, that's literally what the chapter is called. Things like that, reducing Dressrosa to rubble, assault on Noah during Fishman Island. Oda really likes giving those really large-scale, visually symbolic moments to Luffy. Not saying that Zoro doesn't get like large-scale attacks, for example, Zoro versus Pika, that was a big wow moment, everyone saw that, huge scale, right? But I'm saying something very visually symbolic, and I would put Onigashima into that category of being something very visually symbolic, the destruction of Onigashima, representing whatever, the end of Kaido's reign, death of the great demon that's, loomed over Wano for all of these years. I think that something like that, I think the destruction of Onigashima, it makes more sense for Luffy. So I will say no, I do not personally believe that that Zoro is going to be cutting Onigashima in half, because I think that there's a lot of meaning associated with that I think fits better for something that Luffy would do. So that's just my take on it. Ronald Big Don says, Sanji will be back if Nami kissed him. Yeah, I don't know if that's ever happening. I'll just say that. Phantom Greyfire says, miss super chat from Princess Taco. This is for those student loans, lol. Thanks. Let's send those Behenort's way if we can somehow. Princess Taco says, yo, you actually missed my super chat. No, I didn't, Princess Taco. I got it. I got that one. No, why does Morge ignore me? No, I got that one. Don't worry. We're all good. Aslan says he never misses mine. Aslan, that's a good way for me to miss yours next time. Benhart says, what if Kaido flashback is at the end of the arc? There is a precedent for that in Thriller Bark with Brook, so it's possible, assuming Raid won't fail. I think generally with the villains, Brook is an exception on an exception, right? Brook is an exception on an exception in just that, only Straw had to have his flashback post-arc, and Brook isn't the main villain Thriller Bark really wasn't about Brook in many ways. He was a great side character that ended up turning out to be important enough to be a main character. That's why his flashback was saved for the end. Brook was definitely a surprise join, because for most of the arc, the joke was that, Luffy's inviting random things to the crew. He even invited that talking skeleton. It was played as a gag for a long time, right? So Oda did a lot of things untraditionally with Brook. Now, I think in terms of villains, Oda does generally like to give the villain flashback at a point when the villain is... Oda's kind of building up the villain in a sense, right? So it doesn't work as well, I think, to build up the villain after the villain has been defeated. If you look at all of the villain flashbacks so far, like Lucci, it was a short flashback, but the main purpose was to establish how cold-blooded he is, the lengths that he would go to establish justice, essentially showing the meaning of dark justice and how ingrained that is in Lucci, and just establishing what he represents as the dark arm of the world government, the arm that is trying to grab Robin and take her away from the Straw Hats. And Luffy defeating that is not the same as defeating the world government, but it is symbolic in many ways in that Luffy's defeating the ultimate agent of darkness, you could say, right? So having the flashback right then during their fight was very powerful. Doflamingo, if you go back and see the chapter that Luffy even starts fighting Doflamingo, right? Let's say not Luffy and Law, but the chapter after Luffy stops Doflamingo with his foot, Luffy and Doflamingo 1v1 begins. Luffy is basically Treble is talking up Doflamingo is the champion of evil, the embodiment of evil, right? That only makes sense because Doflamingo's flashback has already been done and established, right? Showing Doflamingo from a very, very young age really coming into his mold as that sort of champion of evil, embodiment of evil, whatever you want to call it, whatever Treble wants to call it, right? So you need to get kind of the flashback of the villain first to kind of build up to, the significance of defeating them, right? Big Mom, same thing. We haven't seen Big Mom defeated yet, but we'd gotten the sense that Big Mom is a big threat throughout the arc. The moment that Oda wanted to show that the flashback, who exactly Big Mom was and why she's just so far beyond their level that something as simple as a plan like Capone Beige's of just shooting a poison gas weapon at her is not even going to be close to stopping her. I think Big Mom's flashback was perfectly timed to basically turn the tables on the Straw Hats and kind of show them who they're exactly dealing with, right? And that basically played out for the rest of the arc. From then on, they basically realized, okay, we're not ready to beat Big Mom yet. We've got to run from Big Mom, and that was very important that we got the flashback when we did then. So along that trend, I think just in general, it's just very important that you get the villain flashback before the villain is defeated, not at the end of the arc, unless Oda wants to do something drastically different with Kaido, which is maybe possible. But I'm still holding out. Kaido doesn't have a flashback yet. The fact that Kaido doesn't have a flashback yet, to me, says there's a significant amount of possibility that Luffy's going to think he's winning against Kaido. And then we kind of get an inside look at exactly who Kaido is and why it's maybe not going to be that simple. Roxas Vanitas says, kind of random, but who do you think will defeat Smoothie? Zoro and Sanji are already fighting commanders, and I doubt the other Straw Hats could win. So you're interesting, Roxas Vanitas, because a lot of people don't even believe that Smoothie's going to make it over and become part of this battle. I think that, let's say hypothetically Smoothie is to be defeated. Again, I think that only makes sense if Onigashima itself comes down at some point and Smoothie can be defeated at a later point, just because Smoothie at the moment, it just doesn't really make sense to me how Smoothie could, how could she get up there? How could she get involved? So because that is the case, I think that it is very difficult to imagine, someone in the current battle taking on Smoothie. If I had to guess, I mean, Oda likes fights like Yamato, like women versus women, so maybe Yamato versus Smoothie is a possibility. But at the same time, the reality is that it doesn't look like a matchup versus Smoothie is coming anytime soon from anybody, because Yamato looks like she's about to be occupied with a yokai. Makes sense, considering Yamato's powers are ice, the yokai's powers are fire. Yamato, or even Yamato plus Brook, could be involved in the stopping of the yokai. It just doesn't, if you had to say, okay, look at the entire cast of characters in Onigashima right now, who makes sense to fight Smoothie if Smoothie were to magically appear? If we played that game, I would say Yamato, just because Oda likes girl v girl. Oda likes that. And I think it would be a closer match. It's the matchup that sort of makes sense. You can't really give anyone lower than a commander to Yamato for a good fight. I had really liked the idea earlier that, if characters could get multiple fights throughout the arc, I would have loved to have seen Zoro versus Smoothie before Zoro versus King or something like that, just because, I like the idea of Zoro having to beat a lower commander before beating a higher commander, and I like the idea that Zoro has to fight, Smoothie, who is the swordsman of the Big Mom crew, before fighting the swordsman of the Kaido crew, and the fact that Smoothie is the second in command to Big Mom in the context of the Wano arc, right? She's the second strongest, so it keeps up the trend of Zoro fighting the second strongest, so Zoro technically gets to fight, the number 2 of a Yonko before fighting King, who is, actually the number 2 of a Yonko. So I had a lot going for that, and I think, even just simple stuff like going back to Punk Hazard, Zoro's got these, still holding on to these archaic notions of, women in battle, even though Zoro's seen fucking Big Mom in battle, and she's just, a fucking monster. So, I think overall it would have been good to see Zoro versus Smoothie, but it just doesn't seem like, with the way things are set up with the Onigashima battle right now, it doesn't seem how that could feasibly happen. I would love for, if things went south, then, suddenly there's a lot more room for certain things happening. But at the moment, it doesn't look that way. Doesn't look like, Chino Wong says, Morge, you didn't even watch Thriller Bark anime. How dare you, lol. Wait, what did I say bad about the Thriller Bark anime? I read it, and I actually watched a lot of parts of the Thriller Bark anime, because I thought Thriller Bark had great animation, personally. I thought Thriller Bark was really, guys, am I right here? Thriller Bark was randomly a really well animated One Piece arc. I thought it was randomly a really, really good arc in the anime. It makes no sense at all. I mean, I was already basically a manga reader at that point, and I was kind of still doing that thing where I would go back and watch some anime episodes, because I still had my greater attachment to the anime, but just the amount of filler and things taking too long kind of held me back from really watching all of it in the anime. But at the end of the day, Thriller Bark in the anime, I thought it was a phenomenally animated arc for no reason at all. It's not like Thriller Bark is a really important arc in One Piece or anything like that. It was just fuck it, this random side quest where we don't really do that much, and no one's bounties are gonna go up. No one's really even the world government's gonna cover this up. Moria doesn't even get kicked out of the Shichibukai. Nothing really changes. It's pretty fucking minor in the we just came from Enies Lobby, challenging the world government itself. And now we're going to Marineford. There's gonna be a huge world war, but somewhere in the middle, Thriller Bark just randomly got the best animation of them all. Makes no sense to me, but I'm not really, I liked it. I like Thriller Bark in the anime. I think it's great. Adrian Hakeem says, "What if I like saying Adrian Hakeem's name. I think that's why I always sound happy when I see Adrian Hakeem in the chat, because I like saying the name. Adrian Hakeem. What if Lady Toki is still alive and sends a defeated Kaido into the future? Kaido won't stop trying to take Wano, and his legacy will be lost to time." Oh, that's a really interesting idea, to kind of removing Kaido from the story, essentially, rather than killing him. And at whatever point he shows up way down the line, he'll have missed the boat on Joy Boy, he'll have missed the boat on the final war that he wanted to die on. He'll just have missed the boat on everything. I think that's a really cool idea. Very interesting. Hadn't thought about that before. I do think Toki is alive, though, for sure. I still think... Guys, what do you think? You think that's Hiyori that we're seeing there? The default assumption is that it's Hiyori, right? But Oda can do all sorts of wacky tricks and, pull a rabbit out of the hat or whatever and be it's actually Toki or something, because they're so visually similar. Archangel says, the real-life inspiration for devil fruits is a fruit called the Coco de Mer, and its mythology is basically what Luffy will find at Laugh Tale. So you just dropped something really potentially interesting for me. I've never heard of the Coco de Mer before. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right. If I wasn't streaming right now, I'd check right away what its mythology was. I don't even know what it's like. I can't even get like a reference point for where that might be from. But I'll definitely check it out. I never thought that Luffy would get a devil fruit at Laugh Tale, but maybe that's not what you're saying literally, so I'll take a look. Take a look after the stream. Redx says, Morge needs to do a remake video on how One Piece fuses tragedy and comedy. Dude, Redx, I think that that's like a dated video for me. I would not make that video again at this point because it's just... I think... It was like one of my first videos, you know what I mean? I don't look back fondly on the video or the topic. I was like finding my way, you know. I don't know if I would do that video again, but I think it would have merit if I really tried to do it, you know, if I really tried to do it justice. Keenan says, also was thinking, if the inherited will theory isn't true, and the All Blue is something that exists right now, it's under Reverse Mountain, a sea closed off from the entire world, so almost no one knows it actually exists. But then wouldn't the Reverse Mountain need to be destroyed for that sea to be discovered? Because otherwise it's not really a sea, right? It's just like underwater, like a... I kind of get what you're saying, like it's technically a place where you could find all the fish because everything's merging right there, but it wouldn't feel like they just discovered an ocean, you know what I mean? So I get where you're coming from. I personally don't like it. I love the inherited will theory so much, man, that like I love the idea of Reverse Mountain being destroyed. No matter what, right? We get back to Reverse Mountain at some point in the journey because Brook and Laboon, right? Brook and Laboon means that they get back at some point in their journey. So if we found out that the sea is under the Reverse Mountain, I don't think it's as impactful as just the ocean opening up and the All Blue kind of being there. Steven Zamora says, do you think that what Zoro said in Zou about picking fights with two Yonko because of Sanji will be a relevant conflict between the Straw Hats when the raid fails? Lovely said when. Hope I'm not influencing you guys too much with my use of when. But I like to believe that everyone organically believes this. But when the raid fails... So what you just referenced is a well-known Joy Boy theory. It was controversial for its time. Forgotten to most at this point in time, but I think that there was always... how do I say this? So that theory, I've always had problems with it because it ignores any sort of nuance to the Usopp situation versus the Nami and Robin situation. The simple thing is that Zoro demanded Usopp apologize. Zoro never demanded Robin apologize, right? So that's like the simple distinction. It's evident in the manga itself that Zoro is not as brain dead as to think that, like, well, if anybody leaves for any reason, then I'll just be furious and hold a grudge against them, drag them through the mud, etc., right? If the reason is to protect the crew, or it's altruistic or something like that, obviously that's totally different from someone legitimately disrespecting the captain and legitimately feeling like, well, I need to leave the crew just because I want to leave the crew, right? Which is what Usopp did. Usopp is the only person, since that speech really, since that period of One Piece really, to ever leave the crew for their own whim, right? That's not what Sanji did. However, the idea that Sanji did bring, I guess, 2 Yonko down on them, the fact that that hasn't been addressed, like, if it were to be addressed, it would have to be done more so in a context of Zoro, I guess, holding Sanji to a higher standard, if that makes sense. Like, sure, Zoro wouldn't blame Robin for leaving the crew for that reason, but if Zoro held Sanji to a higher standard, such as, like, Zoro does respect Sanji's strength to a degree, right? Not even to a degree, he secretly does respect it quite a bit. So, if Zoro viewed it as, like, for Sanji as a character, if he viewed that as, like, a weak move or, like, a dangerous move when Sanji knows that, they could have put up a better resistance or done something more, taken a greater action to prevent this scenario from having happened, then I think that's the one route that this conflict sort of makes sense. However, with Sanji's transformation, I suppose, into the, soldier of science, the Germa biology taking over, I think that no matter what, that sort of will take some degree of precedent to whatever potential previous conflict, of like Zoro being mad that Sanji brought 2 Yonko on them. And on top of that, I think it might feel a little forced if Zoro brought that up again, considering it's so late in the game. Like, Zoro's seen Sanji since Whole Cake Island, so if Zoro had a bone to pick with him since then I feel like that should have been addressed earlier. Manhort says, "Joke's on you, Morge. I'm Polish. Here we have free college, no loans." Ah, fuck. Fuck. Damn it. Nothing I can say about that. Wait, let me finish Manhort's comment. "Please come save me. I'm bi and trans in Poland. Very bigoted country. Sad face." I'm not laughing at you being bi and trans. I'm just laughing at the way that you phrased this whole comment. Which is like, you started with like a minor plus, which is like, well, joke's on you, we have free college. And then you basically let it down to, but we're also like a really bigoted country and I'm discriminated against here. So, yeah, I feel like one of those things really balances out the other, or really takes precedence over the other. I'm sorry, man, though. I have nothing else to really say other than I'm sorry that that is the case in so many countries to this day. Obviously, you know, I'm not going to pretend that, like, America is perfect in, you know, these... Also, I don't want to derail this stream into something that it's not supposed to be and alienate a bunch of my viewers. But I'm not going to pretend that America is, like, perfect. I think even diehard America lovers... I like America quite a bit, by the way. But I think even diehard America lovers don't think America is perfect. But, you know, obviously there's countries that are still much, much, much less far along in terms of, let's say, bigotry and stuff than us. So I think some perspective is always important there. Jesse Mango says, "Yo, Morge, first super chat from your #1 offline viewer." Thanks, Jesse Mango. Nice to finally have you on board the stream. I listen to the streams later when I'm at work, and you always make the day go by faster. Thanks. Yeah, I wonder. I'm happy to hear that. I wonder, because I switched time zones, I'm here for Thanksgiving, right? I wonder if some people were able to catch the stream a little earlier who would otherwise have missed it. Because, yeah, I won't say I was like super early, but I was earlier than usual. So, yeah, that's good to know. Andrew Connor says, "Morge, when are we going to get a new reverie? Also, is the fire blob that... What does that mean? Are you talking about, like, a YouTuber reverie, or are you talking about it in the context of One Piece? In the context of One Piece, I think we're not going to get that for, you know, another 4 years. Also, is the fire blob that Kanjuro created the timer to the climax of the Wano arc? I would say no, because the fire blob is going to be stopped. You know what I mean? I would say Onigashima itself falling is more important. So the fire blob seems very, very stoppable. It seems like not that important in the grand scheme of things, at least to me. Because it's also here's the main thing, right? Generally with the timers that Oda likes to introduce, so let's say the birdcage contracting, or the bomb going off in Alabasta, or the Raigo coming down. I'd say that, how do I say this? Usually, I'm not going to say like the whole populace is aware of these timers, because most people did not know about the timed bomb in Alabasta, but generally the more characters are aware of the timer. So more characters are aware of the timer, and that's what fuels the tension of the moment, right? When everybody's sort of aware that something really bad is going to happen if X doesn't happen, right? If Luffy doesn't stop X, or if these characters aren't able to disarm this, or hold this off, or do this thing, or like fight off the captains at Buster Call, right? So it usually matters more when the characters are aware of the timer. Actually, that just makes me feel more like the raid's not gonna, you know, be the final battle, because the characters don't really know that much about the Momonosuke situation, about Onigashima coming down, right? They're not really even aware of that timer. The yokai, we have just Yamato kind of aware of it, but maybe it'll spread. So if Oda wants a timer, I think he could turn the fire blob into a timer, but at the moment, the timer, that fire blob timer, it's really just something that only Yamato knows about, and it seems like Brook and Robin are going to find out about it. But at the moment, it's a very like self-contained sort of issue. Like, it's a side issue that nobody else really is aware of or even cares of. But that also applies to Onigashima coming down. So I guess it really depends. The timer does feel different this arc than other arcs. I didn't even think about that difference till you had me elaborate on it. Also, when are we going to get a new reverie? If you're referring to a YouTuber reverie, next one should be held by JD Legend, I believe. I believe the next JD Legend has claimed the next one. So I think usually the reveries are kind of done at a point where a lot has happened in the story, so that there's a lot more of new material to talk about since the previous reverie. Otherwise, it's kind of a stale discussion. Last time we had a lot of new interesting stuff, like the reveal of the Sun God. Onigashima the battle was in full swing. So it had been a bit, like there was a good amount of stuff to talk about, right? I think before that we were still in the early Act 3 or early Act 3 phase or something like that. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, I think that's kind of the main difference, that you got to wait for certain more events to come about. So I think a better stopping point in the battle or something like that, or the conclusion of an act or something like that, that would warrant a reverie. But go bother JD Legend if you guys want to hear about when the next reverie would be. Angel Riaz says, which anime character do you like impersonating? Also, can you give us some impersonations? I don't do impersonations. I'm sorry about that. I don't like impersonating anime characters either. I'm trying to think of one to give you, because I feel like I can at least attempt something. No, if I do it, it's just going to be too embarrassing. I'm afraid I can't do it. I think the answer is I don't like impersonating any anime character. I think if I were to impersonate someone, I think it'd be fun to impersonate. It'd be fun to impersonate Luffy, but I'm not going to do it on stream. I think that's all I got. Red X says, I think Lady Toki is still alive. There's no reason that Toki and Hiyori can't both be on Onigashima right now and not know it. Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility for sure. Jinho Wong talking about the Marineford video. Marineford video comes out December, let me see, 21st, right? That's the Tuesday. Should be the Tuesday before Christmas. Sorry about the significant delay and everything like that, but that's just the realistic expectation of when it's going to come out. And there's really no reason it won't come out on that day, because it's just, that's basically the best time for it to come out. Yamil Diaz says, is Enma alive, the Klabaterman of Swords? Okay, great thing that you brought that up, because my video tomorrow is on Zoro and Enma. And I think obviously I'm going to gas up my own video, but I think it's an interesting discussion that a lot of people aren't really having. I don't think Enma is alive. But at the same time, I don't think it's as, let's say, dead as a normal sword, if that makes sense. All right? I'm not saying it's, like, alive. Like, I'm not saying that's, like, Odin's spirit walking around or whatever, necessarily. But it's also, I'll let the video speak for itself, because I don't want to say something that just comes off as wrong or paints me the wrong way. I was going to make a Brook video come out. I have the script for a Brook video. I wrote a script for a Brook video and a Zoro video. Reason being, I thought the Brook thing was the thing that stood out to me the most from that chapter, but the Zoro thing, I think, was what needed to be talked about the most from that chapter. So I went with the Zoro video. I talked about a Brook video in the chapter review that I wanted to drop a Brook video next, but I went with the Zoro video instead. The Brook video should come out next week. I did the Zoro video just because it felt a little more topical, a little more relevant to what people want to argue and debate about right now. The Brook video, I think, is a better video. That's going to come out next week. But the Zoro video, I think, is maybe a more immediately interesting video that kind of raises some hypotheticals that I think a lot of people will find interesting. The Brook video is kind of a video that's been a long time coming, that I've wanted to say kind of in-depth about Brook, in the way that I feel that Oda may or may not have a certain vision for Brook, but I hope he does, because I've always felt that he's kind of been the odd man out on the Straw Hat crew ever since he joined, in the way that Oda writes him. So the Brook video has been a long time coming. The Zoro video is more something immediate that I wanted to just get out, basically about Zoro and Enma, that I think is an interesting idea that a lot of people may not be discussing. Maximud Kleisfarul says, thoughts on Red Film? Oh, first question about the Red Film. I totally forgot about this. You guys don't care about the movies, huh? And if Shanks will have a major role, will it be canon? Here is my understanding. If TCB Scans is in the comments, you can maybe expand a little bit on this for the people. Because I am by no means as in tune as many people in the community are with, the Japanese translations, right? Or like announcements from Japan. I try to safely wait whenever I can, because I've made mistakes before. I try to safely wait whenever I can for many people to come out with translations that all seem consistent. Whether it's Yonko, whether it's Ohara, whether it's TCB, whether it's Arthur. I just want to get the gist of it from other people before I start saying things. Here is my understanding at the moment. At the moment, my understanding is that it's not going to be canon, that there was some controversy regarding the translation of the announcement, because it said original story by Oda, when in actuality it meant, based on the original story by Oda, meaning based on Oda's original work, One Piece, the anime is making up, or Toei is making this film Red, right? So, in that way, all One Piece films are based on the original story of One Piece, right? They're all based on Oda's original work. So, my understanding is that it is not, nothing has been confirmed to be canon. Maybe it's canon, but it has not yet been confirmed to be canon. Maybe it will later on be confirmed to be canon. That is my understanding. If people know more than me, please correct me in the comments. I would love to know as well. But from everything I saw on Twitter and the discussions that went on Twitter, Arthur's tweets and the tweets that Arthur deleted and then later corrected, what TCB Scan said, what other people have said, that's my understanding, okay? Now, I would actually, even if it's not canon, and I don't really watch non-canon films, I still have to watch Film Z. I know, I still have to watch Film Z on stream, right? And do a mods tier list right after that. But I would maybe go watch a film on Shanks because it's something different. So I'm not as interested in watching the Straw Hats interact in a non-canon way. I would maybe go watch a movie on Shanks just because even if it's not canon, even if it's fan-made, an anime production, an anime-only production, even if it's, that, because I've seen so little of Shanks in the actual story of One Piece, the canonical story of One Piece, I would be interested in seeing, like an animated take on just a story about Shanks. I would prefer it than actually having the Straw Hats in it. I would love if it's just on Shanks. Because, I would feel like I'm getting to see a character that I really don't get to see much of in the actual story of One Piece. Some spin on it, a take on him, like a take on what a story about him might be like. Sorry, I'm just scrolling real quick. Oh, come on. Come on. The stream has not failed, by the way, guys, which is shocking because I don't have Ethernet. I guess it's because nobody else is home right now, so nobody else is sucking up the internet. Ninerbot also said, are you hyped for the new Shanks movie? I will, expanding on it just a little bit, I'm not hyped, but I've never really been hyped about the movies. I'm not hyped, but I'm interested, right? And it's something that's at least piqued my interest, and I'm willing to check out. Give it a chance, might go watch it in theaters. Super Gamification, hey, I haven't seen you in a bit. Hey Morge, here's some tribute. Thanks for the awesome work. Thank you, Super Gamification. I appreciate the tribute. The saintly tribute. Archangel says, my original theory, the lore is about a boy on a ship who finds an island under the sea and finds a nest of Garuda, i.e. giant birds, and they fly him to the Holy Land. The coco de mer is the rarest fruit and grows on one island. Oh, dude, that's very interesting. My original theory, the lore is about a boy on a ship who finds an island under the sea. Let's all listen to Archangel's theory. The lore is about a boy, it's based on mythology of the coco de mer, okay? Boy on a ship who finds an island under the sea and finds a nest of Garuda, i.e. giant birds. Garuda in Hindu, man, I'm ashamed of my culture. Hindu mythology, Garuda is the bird that Vishnu flies on. Did I say something totally wrong? I know that's correct. Am I totally wrong? Yeah. Sorry, it's been a while since I've read my Amar Chitrakatha. Alright? And those are the comics that I grew up on. There's actually an Amar Chitrakatha just on him. And how he... Garuda's kind of nuts in that Amar Chitrakatha. He claims that on a single feather he can hold all the weight of the universe or something like that. Anyway, back to your thing. They fly into the Holy Land. The coco de mer is the rarest fruit and grows on one island. Okay, I just don't understand from the comment that you said. Why don't you just at me at Twitter? I'm gonna assume that you have the same handle as your thing. Just post it on the Twitter timeline or something like that. And if it's if it's interesting, I'll retweet, etc. Because that's pretty cool. I've not ever heard this sort of a theory around it before. But yeah, just do that. I don't fully understand from your comment exactly what the full scope of it is, but if it is drawing on a mythology that I haven't heard of before and it seems connected to One Piece in some way, then I'd be interested. So yeah, just add me on Twitter, I'll like, retweet, etc. Hans Ding says, Admirals stronger than Yonko make for better story. But I just don't think that the Admirals are stronger than the Yonko. I just don't think it, like, to me it just doesn't make sense for the Admirals to be stronger than the, like, all of the Admirals to be stronger than all of the Yonko. Maybe it makes for a better story for you, but for me personally, I like the idea that, like, you know, the world government is the strongest, but it's not like it would win if all of the pirates teamed up together. It's just the issue is that the pirates aren't, like, the Yonko don't work with each other either. The Yonko are enemies to each other just as much as they are to the world government. So that's why a Kaido Big Mom alliance is such a big deal, because that swings things. That's why the world government was so afraid of Whitebeard and Shanks teaming up, for example. So I like the idea that the world government, based on all of its military forces, is clearly stronger than any individual Yonko plus their crew, but the thought or the fear or the concept of Yonko teaming up, that can change the game in certain ways. I'm not saying that they would suddenly win, but if all the Yonko teamed up together, I think that suddenly the world government is in big, big trouble. Keenan B says, I've seen people say this even during this stream, but could you imagine how broken Usopp would be with Kanjuro's Devil Fruit? Think about it. How broken Usopp would be with I mean, Usopp is a really good artist, right? Is that what you're getting across? Usopp's a really, really good artist. He would be broken with Kanjuro's Devil Fruit, but Kanjuro is also a really, really good artist. I mean, yeah. Like, would Usopp be more broken than Kanjuro? Because Kanjuro is already, we can't really tell how strong Kanjuro is in combat. He created the yokai, which seems really, really strong, but in straight combat he did lose frequently. So it's hard to tell. I don't know how strong Usopp would be with Kanjuro's Devil Fruit. But Usopp is also very creative, so it's a combination of being creative, right, plus being a good artist, because Usopp could probably come up with, like, a lot of clever ways to use the Devil Fruit. Abhay Singh, thanks a lot, I appreciate it. Keiju says, have you read A Song of Ice and Fire? What's your opinion on it? I've read a couple of the books, so I've not read the full, the full thing. Read a couple of the books. I really enjoyed them, but the thing is that, like, I read them before I started watching Game of Thrones. And once I started watching Game of Thrones, I never felt like going back to read the books, not because the books weren't good or better than the show was. It's just that the show, especially in its early stages, was really good, kept you really hooked. You got the sense that it was going to... Here's the trouble, the show was good enough. The show was good enough that you could feel like you could follow the show and not the books. And the show clearly cut away a lot of the plots, right? So when you have a show that you can tell is cutting away a lot of the plots, but you also know that the show is getting, like, is in contact with the main author and everything like that, right? The problem is that suddenly you realize how many plots from the books are not that important in the long run, right? Because, okay, this character is a character in the books, but not in the show. This plot thread's a thing in the books, but not in the show. As you start seeing that, you feel less incentivized to go read the books, because suddenly it's like, okay, but, like, the books, it seems like you can do away with a lot of the stuff in the books, and it's actually not that big of a deal. Why don't I just watch the show instead? Because the show is also really good, and it seems like it sticks to the main point. So that's actually the fear of a really, really good TV series coming out that competes with the novels, right? Because suddenly, one, you have something that's easier to get interested in, right? Takes up less of your mental focus or whatever. It's not as dense as a novel series. And two, it kind of unfortunately reveals what's important in the books and what's not, and how much of the books is kind of just fat that can be cut away. And once that kind of becomes clear, you feel less incentivized to read the books, because you kind of start knowing that, like, okay, really it's these characters that are the important ones, and these side characters, like, okay, they're actually just side characters. They're not even showing up in the TV series. So I did think that the books were really good, though, when I was reading them. Dom says, week 10 of asking Morge when Film Z will happen. Is it week 10 of asking that? Do you ask that every week? Film Z... I mean, I've been saying it's got to be a Saturday, right? It's got to be a Saturday, unless I took, like, a long Monday to do it. Because I have to film on Mondays anyway. Wait, why don't I just do it the next Monday that we don't have a chapter? Because I do the streams anyway, right? And normally I would do a tier list. Why don't I do it next time we don't have a chapter? That's a great idea. That's so fucking smart. That's brilliant. I'll just do it the next time we don't have a chapter. Because yeah, when we don't have a chapter, normally I just do a tier list instead of doing a post-chapter discussion. So that's the plan. Next break. So look out for next break. That's when we'll do Film Z. That slots in easily into my already existing streaming schedule, and it checks off the box of doing Film Z. And I don't have to think of a tier list for that week. So brilliant stuff all around. Eris says, "Hi Morge, if the raid fails, which characters do you see taking a backseat or a more prominent role, and how so?" I think that the Scabbards, however many of them are still alive, take a significant backseat. I think that the arc becomes significantly more Straw Hat focused. I still believe that the arc this arc, more than any arc in my mind, makes sense to be Straw Hat focused because that seems like the purpose of writing an arc that is so heavily based on a leader and his 9 followers, right? So then Odin and his Scabbards are supposed to say something about the story of Luffy and the Straw Hats, right? Otherwise you just wouldn't have this setup of an absurdly large cast of 9 characters with one leader that they worshipped, like, who saved them in many ways the same way that Luffy saved his crew, right? So I think that no matter what, by the end of the arc, we have to feel like this really was an important arc for the Straw Hats. Showed us something, we learned something, like some thematic tie-in to the story of Odin and the Scabbards and the story of Luffy and the Straw Hats. That's why a lot of it makes sense to me that if the raid fails, that sets us up really nicely for a lot of the Straw Hats to get stories. Sanji's story seems set up in a way, unless his whole Germa thing resolves in like a single fight with Queen, right? I think Zoro, watch the video that comes out tomorrow. I think it's got some interesting ideas about Zoro. That would work even if the raid doesn't fail. So that's my key point. So, but there are clear avenues that seem to have just opened up with Zoro as of the last chapter. I'm not going to like go down the list with it, but I think that personally the arc really makes sense and feels right to be about the Straw Hats. If it's not that Straw Hat centric, then reading the story about like 9 Scabbards and Odin, it's just kind of really weirdly unnecessary, because then you don't need that parallel. The existence of the parallel means that you should get something out of that parallel by the end of the story, right? And there's some things, I'm not going to lie, there's certain things, some ways that you could like look at these 2 parallel stories and be like, okay, that's interesting, but at the same time, the parallel doesn't hit that strong if there's not a strong focus on the other side of it as well, right? We've had so much focus on the Scabbards, so significant focus on the Straw Hats, even though this has probably been the least Straw Hat-centric arc in any major One Piece arc history. That's a little surprising, which leads me to believe that there is more to come for the Straw Hats that is important. Sanji getting maybe his most important storyline in the entire story of One Piece, that's a good indicator to me that that could be the route we might be headed down. Ben North says, "Can you handle they/them pussy? Bet you can." Sorry, did I say... I don't know what pronouns I referred to you with, but I will use they/them from here on. Sorry. Abhay Singh says, "Like the stream, guys. We got 1K viewers and less than 400 viewers. 400 likes, I assume you mean. Also ratio. Yeah, like the stream, guys. Guys, like the stream. It's a great stream. Like the stream." 8 Gates Production says, "Morge, have you seen Murphy Napier's One Piece vids? Also, you're from the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia. I'm comfortable sharing with you right now that right now I am in the DMV because I'm home for Thanksgiving. But normally I am not there because I have moved. So I'm home for Thanksgiving, so yes, I am in the area, but normally I'm not. Have I seen Murphy Napier's One Piece vids? No, she's a book reviewer, right? She's a booktuber, she's a book reviewer. I'm not super interested in, I guess, booktuber opinions. I guess just because, like, to me, there's just not much more to... It's just, like, the same way I'm not as interested in, like... I like live reactions, so I like watching people's live reactions to anime episodes of One Piece and some of my favorite moments and things like that. But I'm not as interested in, like, just watching people who have caught up to One Piece talk about it, because, like, I just don't really get anything out of that, you know? Same thing with, like, Totally Not Mark stuff, like... I think anytime, like, a big YouTuber kind of catches up on One Piece, or, like, a relatively large YouTuber catches up on One Piece, then people get really excited because they want the opinions and stuff, but, like, I already talk to and see so many opinions of people who, like, have caught up to One Piece, so, like, I kind of Like, I just don't get that much out of it, if that makes sense. If it's like new perspectives or something, it's like, I don't know how many. Like, I'm so ingratiated in the One Piece community in general. Like, you see a million perspectives, you see new people catching up to the series all the time, bringing their own perspectives, etc. I like watching live reactions because then I get to kind of relive that joy of that moment with the person. So, like, live reactions are fun for me. Yeah, just like hearing somebody post having read a chunk of the story, talk about that chunk of the story, and basically being like, I like the story, I don't get as that much out of it. But I also don't know the details of how, people really, like how these sort of videos go. So maybe I would like a Daniel Green or Murphy Napier's videos or something like that. I don't know, but I just don't feel incentivized to watch it. One sec, catching up. One sec. Okay. Cuckooman4504 says, if the criticism for this CBLA is that Cowboy Bebop, is that what we call it now? CBLA? Is that it was too zany? That flaw actually feels like it would be a great thing in the context of One Piece LA? Dude, no, that's not the flaw. I think how do I say this? I thought that was the best aspect of the show, the zaniness, because it could appeal to someone who had never seen the anime before. Okay? If you wanted a faithful adaptation to Cowboy Bebop, then it was wildly off. But the sense of fun, wackiness, I could see that sort of appeal. Like, it just seems like a dynamic, kind of, I don't want to say like really vibrant world because it's not that fleshed out or anything like that, but like, it feels new, it feels like a little different. There is there is some degree of charm to, I guess, what you would say the zaniness and the campiness of the new Cowboy Bebop, and it would appeal to someone who is not attached to the anime in any way and has never seen it before, okay? The main flaws are, in my opinion, the dialogue, which is crazy bad. The direction at points feels very, very amateurish, I said, right? I think I don't know how much the acting versus the dialogue or whatever, but I think those are the flaws, right? I think if One Piece suffers from bad dialogue, then like that's really, really, really rough. I really, really hope it doesn't, and I think the direction for One Piece needs to be even more on point than Cowboy Bebop, because it's just like so much of there's so much more that you need to capture with One Piece, if that makes sense. Like, it's just, there's a lot more shit going on. Like, even in adapting a basic Luffy fight scene versus like a Spike fight scene, worlds apart in terms of difficulty. But yeah, I agree, One Piece being wacky and zany, that would actually work for the live action. Maximud Cis Farul says, Morge absolutely butchering my name each week. I'd like to know if you watch Murphy Napier's analysis / takes on One Piece. Wait, am I in like a time warp? Did I already answer this? Did I already read this? Is my brain lagging behind? I gotta open up the Super Chats tab because I'm confused as fuck. I don't think I read a comment about me butchering your name before. What's going on? Is it just two people asking about the same thing? Or am I like really, really confused about something? Alright, while I find this, Behenort says, what if Emu kills all the Celestial Dragons as part of Great Cleansing? It could solve the problem of punishing them without the heroes killing them. Oh. I don't know if Oda would kill I feel like Oda would go the route of reformation if possible. But then the thing, because like we've seen a Celestial Dragon, right, from the Don Quixote family actually get reformed. However, so many of the Celestial Dragons have done such like abominable things, like the ones that we saw at Sabaody. It is very difficult to imagine them being like redeemed in any way, because they literally used a dude as a throne to walk around on, right? They didn't kill him, but they shot some woman's fiancé just because they felt like the number of things we saw from them in such a short amount of time makes them practically irredeemable. So Emu killing all the Celestial Dragons, that's the thing. I guess we really need to learn more about Emu and how much are the Celestial Dragons the same race as Emu, or how much is Emu something just totally different on a different wavelength. You know what I mean? Because if Emu's like kind of his own thing and he's using or manipulating the rest of the Celestial Dragons, then I could see that as a possibility. Okay, there were just 2 separate comments about Murphy Napier's analysis. Like, I actually was just like, what? Am I, like, I don't know, chat wasn't scrolling back, so I couldn't tell if, like, I just read the same comment, but last time I only read half of it. So I think you got the gist of my views on it from the previous comment. Alright. Halil says, any thoughts on what happened at the end of Whole Cake Island with the Sun Pirates and Germa? Seems pretty pointless in retrospect given how dramatic it was. I 100% agree, because that was by far, there is not a single One Piece arc where there is a bigger cliffhanger to the arc than Whole Cake Island. By far the biggest cliffhanger, okay? Stuff like Ace and Blackbeard you could argue, but that was unrelated to the actual events of the storyline, right? That's not related to the events of Water 7 and Ace Lobby. That is a separate event that is happening outside the scope of that. This was the culmination of all of the story of Whole Cake Island, and it ended in a giant fucking cliffhanger. So, my thoughts still are that there are a lot of threads that we can see that still need to be connected, right? I view all of this as, some degree of evidence or suggestion that there is more to Wano that we have yet to see, because so many things on the surface level seem to be being checked off, but then underneath that there's like, if you think even just for like a little bit, you can immediately think of something new that has yet to be checked off or yet to be addressed. Who the fuck was that guy drinking with Crocus, right? During the time skip. There's still basic, like, that dude was clearly from Wano, we still don't know who the fuck that was. There's still basic things that we still have no answers in sight for, but Oda's doing a good job, like, making it seem, at least to me, making it seem as though, like, we're going through the usual motions of, like, checking off a lot of surface level things that we would expect to be checked off. Almighty G Swank says, do you think there is a 4th type of Haki that has already been introduced in the form of innate elemental control? Diablo Jambe, Fishman Karate, Minx and Electro, etc. I would personally think that, I see what you're saying, fire manipulation, water manipulation, electricity, etc. Diablo Jambe, so at least with what Queen recently said, right, the problem is that there's explanations for all of these at this point. Diablo Jambe, Queen seems to have implied that it is not normal for humans to be able to set themselves on fire. So Queen seems to have implied, like, this is a Yonko commander, that it is not, like, using fire or, like, setting your body on fire just on a whim. That's something very difficult to accomplish. Like, that's not a Haki-based ability, right? That's from Queen's perspective. Which opens up the possibility of Lunarians, because now we know Lunarians, Lunarian DNA, etc., right? Now we know that that's a race that can actually manipulate fire. Then Fishman Karate, that just seems like the ability to manipulate water, right? Which just makes sense. You're hitting water molecules in the air. So it's not really Haki-based. It's more Fishman. It's just pure Fishman technique and manipulation of water, which is something innate to them. Minx and Electro, that's a bit more of a stretch, but you can chalk it up to static electricity and a powerful use of static electricity, right? Even stuff like, Brook being able to use ice. I don't think that's ever been implied that Brook has a 4th element of Haki. That's the coldness of the underworld, right? So Oda can stretch in many ways, but he is able to find explanations that are not Haki for all of these elemental techniques. Lastly, even if this was a new branch of Haki, I would not think it's a 4th type of Haki. I would assume that it is a offshoot of armament Haki in some way, that in my opinion. Otherwise, like, all these fishermen and all of these minks can use this totally unheard of 4th branch of Haki, Often Chowdhury says, do you watch the new live action Cowboy Bebop on Netflix? I hope you're around for hearing my explanation on it, because I think I've talked about it quite a bit over the course of the stream. In short, just in case you did not hear my thoughts on it, I'll say very, very quickly, I thought it is not as bad as people on Twitter made it out to be, although because even though it is a really bad adaptation, I think it is a very, very poor adaptation show, or like anime to live action of Cowboy Bebop. I think if you go in purely fresh with no anime background, no idea, just like some dude turned on Netflix, saw like this random show, this sci-fi show on TV or whatever, you would find that there is some degree of like, weird, low budget, corny dialogue, charm to the way that it is done. I don't think that its charm is fully intentional, but I think you could find it an entertaining show, even if you acknowledge that like a lot of it is really roughly written. Some of the stuff seems really amateurishly done, but you could find like, something that maybe you haven't seen in other TV shows, if that makes sense. I'm not ever going to say it's good, but I'm saying that like, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of non-anime fans who have no interest in that genre happen to switch it on and happen to find it entertaining to a degree and just view it as like, like a random sort of different sci-fi fun zany show. That's kind of what I've been using. I've been using the word zany quite a bit. Archangel says, tweeted you a link to my video on the Coco de Mer. Thank you, Archangel. I'll check that out after I'm done with this stream, obviously. Ninerbot says, how do you get your friends into One Piece? Nobody has time to watch 1,000 episodes, and the East Blue Saga is really slow. Manga is also time-consuming. Fun fact, I actually, for a fun video idea, I had actually written up a full video. I have a full existing video script on this topic, how to get your friends into One Piece. I might release that video just because you're the first person who's actually like asked me that in a chat. But I have that full video topic. I just didn't release it in the end because I was like, I don't know if my viewers will like vibe with it. Like, I don't know if like, because it is a more fun topic, if that makes sense, but it is also like a genuine take on the topic because I have experience I've tried to get so many people into One Piece and I found like different things that work for different people. You can get anyone into One Piece, but like there's certain avenues that you have to attempt with it, okay? And there is one surefire way. I think. All right? Should I just say it here? Okay, it's like a whole thing, all right? But, I'm only talking to like some percentage of my viewers right now, so it's not like I'm screwing over a video topic if I say it, but like, there's different aspects to it, all right? Part of it is the medium that you get them through, because like, you're saying the anime or the manga, etc. I think at the end of the day, the most important thing, though, all right, the most important single takeaway, maybe I'll release this video at some point, but most important thing is basically you need to do a trade. That's the only way you can do it. You need to do a trade because it is very difficult to just get people to just try out your interests and like stick with it for a long period of time because One Piece takes a long time to get good. So like good. You know what I mean? Like, I can't stop reading this, sort of good, right? It's enjoyable from early on, I think, in everyone's opinion. But you need to do a trade. That's the simplest way. That's like the reality of like, if you have anything you like, forget One Piece, even if it's some other show, other book series, whatever, you have to do a trade. That's just how life works. Like, just because you like something doesn't mean, you can like, your friends are going to latch onto it right away, or like they're going to have interest in it. Like they're going to be hesitant with it, right? Especially because it's such a big commitment. So you need to find something that they really like and trade them. Okay, so like one of my friends had a really, really, in my opinion, may he rest in peace, because I might have mentioned he passed away last year. He had a really shitty taste in music, in my opinion. Turned out I was wrong. I changed my opinion on it. Right? I did not like the fact that like we would always make fun of him because like everyone else plays, in our opinion, good music, and then he would get like the aux cord, or like he'd get his shit on the Bluetooth or whatever, and like he would play like, how did I say? Okay, Tool was his favorite band. All right. Now, if you like Tool, please listen to me. Please wait and listen. All right. In general, we would call his music like too screamo, too metal, too whatever. He also liked lots of like alternative shit where like they would do off-key shit and stuff on purpose. Like Primus, for example. Like, none of us liked his music. All right, we all fucking hated it, and we would make fun of him for it. So I was trying to get him to One Piece, and the trade that we ended up doing was basically like I had to listen to each album of Tool and like listen to some of them twice, and for each one of those he would read like 30 chapters. Okay, and him doing that, obviously I got through Fear Inoculum. It's been a while, so I don't even remember all of them off the top of my head. What are the three major ones? I know the first one that he made me listen to, I like the best. Sorry, I don't remember album titles off the top of my head. I did end up enjoying Tool, though, okay? So you end up learning something that you didn't. I appreciated them a lot more than when they would just come on, like when he's just blasting them through the speaker, and I just don't have time to like actually like sit down and listen to it and like process what's happening. But so that was one thing, and then after I got through those albums, then like done with Tool, so then he starts like forcing me to listen to different different further down the rabbit hole of his genre of music that he seemed to really enjoy. And like I just did 30 chapter trades with him on One Piece for each of those. I'd listen to an album twice, and in return he'd read 30 chapters. So that's a simple way that you can kind of do it. So I guarantee you, whatever friends you've got, like they probably have some interest. It doesn't have to be another show that they like, or book series that they like, or comic series that they like. It can be something like something as simple as like, are they really into music, or like a video game or something like that, or like even like a sport that they enjoy playing. Like if you've got like a really good friend that you really want to try something, like same thing for like relationship, girlfriend. Like if you really wanted to try One Piece, try something that she really likes, right? It's the simplest way to get somebody to really give a good shot, or really give a good go at something that you really like, because more people are going to be willing to try something if you're willing to try something for them, right? Hans Ding says, what's different about Alabasta and Wano, Morge? After Luffy's defeat, he screamed meat and came back water Luffy. Straw Hats never thought Luffy would lose. Alright. Okay. First of all, Luffy lost in the desert, right? Go read the Straw Hats' reactions after the Luffy desert fight, alright? That is what we call dramatic tension, alright? When the characters, they want to be confident that Luffy will win. Read the chapters directly after Luffy lost the desert fight. Read the chapter after that. Everybody on the crew is worried, tense, scared. They're not admitting it, but they don't know for sure if Luffy won, right? They don't know what happened with Luffy. They don't know if they're going to win, all right? That chapter is the definite, like that scene is the definition of dramatic tension. Zoro and Sanji are arguing. Everybody's tense. Everyone's scared because they don't know what just happened to Luffy, right? It even leads into like things like Usopp, like the Usopp reaction that he had with Mr. Four and everything like that, right? Mr. Four pair, right? That was so visceral because we're coming off that scene earlier where everybody's worried about what happened with Luffy. And now these people tell them, well, Luffy died. And that just makes Usopp stop, because at this point, like, he just refuses to let them say that. And that's what makes it such a powerful moment, right? That's what makes the Nami moment of, like, Luffy will never stop until blah, blah, blah. Like, it's a good moment, but it's, like, such a pale... Like, if you reread the Usopp scene, right? That Usopp scene versus the Nami scene, that's, like, a great example of the gap, like, the gigantic gap between Alabasta and Wano. Alabasta's actual substance and storytelling and dramatic build-up to certain moments. Whereas Wano, it's kind of just like practically fan service to a previous better moment that is based on practically nothing, right? Now, Water Luffy. Straw Hats never thought Luffy would lose. So one, everybody was worried in the desert. When Luffy returned, right? When Luffy returned, very, very important point. They were all, when Luffy returned, came from the sky, yelled, crocodile, etc., right? The crew is very excited, obviously. Crew is very, very excited. Luffy's going to win. Everybody believes he's going to win right then. Awesome. Luffy goes into that second round against Crocodile with everybody saying, of course Luffy's going to win. He just came back. Of course he's going to win. That is why Luffy then lost. Okay? That's basic rules of dramatic tension. Basic rules of dramatic tension. You never write everybody saying, obviously the main character is going to win, and then actually have them win, right? Luffy had to, after losing that fight, right? After losing that fight, then the dramatic tension rises again, right? Then there's the bomb scenario, then the Straw Hats. Now they're like desperately trying to stop the war. Everything's coming down to the wire. Luffy's going down to face Crocodile again for the third time, and this time go read the tone at the start of that fight versus the start of the second fight and see how things are drastically different, all right? Drastically different. And that's why the third fight, that's the one where it fits for Luffy to win. So, difference is like heaven and earth. Like, that's the point. What we're reading right now is essentially the same exact tone as Luffy going into Crocodile's second fight, right? People are treating it as like, obviously Luffy's going to win. There's zero dramatic it's just not there. At least, it's just not there for the characters, right? No character they're very literally using the word obviously Luffy is going to win, right? Very literally using the word obviously frequently. So it's pretty different. Anyway, I could do this for every major arc if you wanted the breakdown of it, and maybe I will some video, but like, I think that people have the general memory of what Alabasta was like, so they're like, well, Wano's the same because I generally remember the Straws doing this or that, but if you actually read the Alabasta arc from start to finish and read the Wano arc, if you read those two things back to back, or side by side, or compare chapters or something, you'd see a gigantic difference. It's gigantic. Let me see how many people I made angry. Sorry, I gotta check on the chat. Now chat's loading too slow. When I actually want to read it. I gotta get the Ethernet next time I come back here. Alright, I guess people aren't that mad, but... Bro is going bald. I'm not going bald. How am I going bald? Fuck you guys. I got like a full head of hair. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. Alright. Yeah, Steve Burkina says, I just reread Alabasta and I corroborate what Morge is saying. Yeah, like, the reality is basically, like, most people have the vague memory of Alabasta, or they have the vague memory of certain arcs, and, like, that's what they kind of base it off of. So if you have the vague memory of it, then, yeah, it will feel like Wano's similar because you assume that you're seeing the same things. But, like, if you actually read or, like, compare, then you remember the actual flow of events was very different, and the way that the tone of certain events played out is very, very, very different. So... Anyway, got all the prog nerds mad now. I said I like Tool. I like Tool in the end. I like Tool in the end. I thought Tool was great in the end. I have respect for Tool. I'll say this: I don't listen to Tool, right? Like I don't listen to Tool. Like I don't go out of my way to listen to it, because that's not my personal brand of music. But I can still enjoy it. Like if I sat down and listened to like a full album, even though that's somewhat long, I would enjoy it for most of the way through, and I have much greater respect for the music. And like I've seen people like on Reddit, for example, say like Tool are some of the few like actual musicians out there like in like still putting out music, right? And like I would be inclined to agree. I get what people say by that shit, you know. So I don't want to like make it sound like I was wrong for earlier for thinking the things that I did. Kind of like, you know, a lot of people are wrong when they assume that anime is, you know, some weird Japanese bullshit that, like, they're not going to enjoy. You know, it's the same thing. Lots of times you don't know or you don't value certain things, so you actually give it a fair shot. Alright, where are we at? Banhort says, bruh, you never heard they/them, pussy, it's different, can't handle them, they/them, pussy. Also, memes. Also, I go by she/her, thanks for asking. Alright, Banhort, I will keep that in mind. I don't think I've seen those memes, but I'll watch out for them. Maybe they're only in Poland. Cocoonman4504 says, I think because the episodic nature of Cowboy allows more changes, I wonder if that freedom gave them too much free reign to change things. If that's the case, the OP-LA might not have that problem. Why are we calling it LA? Is this just our new word for Hollywood? I didn't realize that. When did that catch on? I see what you're saying, because with One Piece it has to stick to more of a certain plot, but it actually doesn't really have to. You can do simple things like move the arrival of certain Strats earlier, right? Because you just can't. You can cut out certain villains, you can combine Strats into a given arc. However, based on the episode titles that were dropped for One Piece, it does look like they are going to stick to the East Blue script pretty clearly. And East Blue is where it's really... Here's the thing, like with Cowboy, it can improve, right? With flip side, right? Cowboy can improve with a second season, because they'll know where they went wrong. With One Piece, in my opinion, I still have high hopes for not high hopes, but I still try to be optimistic about the One Piece live action. Don't think it's going to be great. I think it can be passable. That's all I'm saying. I think it can be passable enough that it can get more people interested in the series. Now, that being said, One Piece live action, it has to succeed in the first season, because, like you said, Cowboy Bebop's Cowboy Bebop is episodic. One Piece is a larger narrative building. One Piece, the further you go in the world, the larger the setting becomes, the larger the conflict becomes, the larger the element of fantasy becomes. East Blue is the most grounded One Piece ever is, right? East Blue is the simplest thing to adapt. If they cannot adapt East Blue well, I think it is nearly impossible to adapt something like an Alabasta arc well. Like a Skypiea well, like an any Slobby well. I don't even know how they would do any Slobby visually. I think that East Blue is a start. If they can't get East Blue right, then I think the show's kind of just, I don't know. The Fatty2497 says, the Red Scabbards designs are some of the worst Oda ever created. They're boring, weak, and uninteresting. Every time I see them, I vomit. Raizo's disgusting. Damn, dude, I don't want to... I'm not looking to jump in on, I'm not trying... I only got on Wano's case a little bit because of the Alabasta comparison. I'm not trying to go after, the general character designs and such of the characters. If you're saying the designs, visually, look, I think Raizo's got a distinctive look. I liked Inurashi and Nekomamushi. In particular, I won't lie, I like Inurashi and Nekomamushi in Zou, and I like Nekomamushi's design quite a bit in Zou. Ashura Doji, maybe not the most interesting design, I suppose, but I like the character initially. I think some of the interesting character aspects of the character have faded, for me, personally, over time. Denjiro, I thought was a nice character design because I thought Kyoshiro was a nice character design when we first saw him, right? I thought Kyoshiro was an interesting character. Turned out he's Denjiro. Kiku's Kiku. Kiku with the mask on, I think, is really, really cool. Shame we didn't see more of that. Kinemon I just like as a character, so maybe I can't judge his character design too much. And Kanjuro, I think, is a nice character design. I think it's a character design that stands out more once we realize that he's evil. So to be honest, I'm going to defend the Scabbard character. I don't think that they're great character designs. I personally think Kawamatsu is kind of a very dull, forgettable character design. I see where you're coming from with Raizo. I just think that I don't think that I'm going to come after the Scabbards really for their designs. You know what I mean? I think Oda did his best trying to make characters that are not too badass looking, because that's not kind of their thing. They're kind of like these ragtag group of ruffians that Odin threw together, and they're not meant to draw that much attention away from the main characters of the story, I think, visually. I think Oda did a good job making them distinct from each other, and I think certain ones like Kanjuro really fit the role that Kanjuro plays in the story. So that's all I got. Keiju says, what's your opinion on the final chapter of Berserk? People are going to be upset. I have not read it. I think I am that is the chapter I haven't read. I'm one chapter behind on Berserk. Reason being, and this is, believe me when I say Berserk is one of my favorite series, alright? One of my favorite series, argument for, one of the best series ever, for sure. No, not an argument. One of the best mangas ever created, for sure. One of probably the best works of anything created ever, for sure, right? I've not read the final chapter, partly because it's weird to say, but I guess, how do I say it? When I found out that I'm never going to find out the end of the story, right, because it does not sound as though it's going to be continued by anyone as far as I know, my desire to read the next chapter immediately vanished. I don't know why that is. I don't know. I can't tell you why that is. It's just because once I know that it's not going to go anywhere, I have less desire to see it. And it would just feel really weird to me. It would just feel really weird to me to read the final chapter. Not even it would be really unsettling or emotionally disturbing or something like that, but just I would feel like I'm reading nothing, if that makes sense. I don't know, just the fact that it's unfinished to me just changes so much about how I feel about reading, one more part of it, if that makes sense. It's just weird. And it's not a big decision, I'm sitting down and being I'm not reading the next chapter. It's just that, it's not something that ever comes up in my mind. When the chapter dropped on that day, I was oh, maybe I'll read it. And then I was busy that day, next day I forgot about it, stuff like I just immediately stopped feeling invested or caring about the next chapter. It became more like, if I have time at some point and I feel like it, I'll try it, but there's always something else to do, you know? So it's weird, but I haven't read the final chapter. Can't really say much more than that. The pirate here says, maybe Jinbe just got delayed because otherwise Luffy couldn't get separated at Wano's start. Jinbe could just swim them up the waterfall, lol, JK sorta. You are actually right, the pirate hero, but I don't think that's I feel like there's still more to it than that. You know what I mean? Because it was just such a large... The way Jinbe was reintroduced, you would expect it to be at like a pivotal moment, but it was kind of very casually slipped in that he kind of just returned. So I expect that there's, you know, a little bit more to the story of what happened with Jinbe and the rest of the Sun Pirates. And I would personally hope that, you know, the only reason Oda didn't kept Jinbe away like arbitrarily for so long and made such a cliffhanger out of it wasn't just to avoid the waterfall situation, hopefully. Ninerbot says, I don't think this is the last we see the Sanji raid suit. Made no sense why Oda made such a big deal out of it and only get 2 fights and destroyed. Because Ninerbot, I think that the raid suit, the power-up I don't think was... Because at the end of the day, Sanji still got a power-up, right? Which is the natural Germa enhancements. So I think the raid suit... I think the purpose was more character-based, right? Because it was a power-up for a bit, but then Sanji got a more significant power-up, right? The actual Germa body enhancements. We can all acknowledge that's way more impressive than the raid suit itself was, because like Queen's sword shattered against Sanji, right? That was wild. That was probably... Most people were calling that Sanji's most... No one was saying shit like Sanji's stronger than all the commanders and stuff, you know, when Sanji put on the raid suit. People had a hard time even scaling, like, what does raid suit Sanji even mean? So, I personally would like it. I personally am just going to assume for the moment that the raid suit is gone, just for right now. I don't think it would be that bad if it came back or anything like that, as long as Oda kind of reconciles with the point that he made through Sanji earlier on about how Sanji feels about the raid suit, right? And I feel like Sanji's decision to destroy it just makes for a stronger character moment than the power-up that the raid suit made for, because, I don't think that the raid suit was actually that significant of a power-up, you know what I mean? I think it pales far in comparison to what he's undergoing right now. So, to me, the raid suit just kind of became a cherry on top, and if Sanji got rid of that, the value you get character-wise out of it feels stronger, at least to me. But, as you say in your next comment, and Usopp said he wanted to make the mods, he wanted to mod the raid suit. If we see that, I'd be happy to see that. I just don't think that it's necessary. And I was never that hung up on the raid suit, I think, personally. So, that's my thought on it. Aslan says, Luffy needs to lose someone to strengthen his will to become Pirate King. Tell me if I'm wrong. I agree. I strongly agree. One of the things that I talked about in an earlier video, the previous raid feeling video, was that, like, Oda wrote things somewhat differently in that he's avoiding having Luffy experience a defeat. Both times we've seen Luffy defeated in Wano. The first time was a one-shot, so Luffy doesn't really experience, like, it's just instantaneous, right? It's not like the crocodile scene or the Lucci scene or whatever, right? And the second time was off-screen. So Oda's not yet showing something like, an actual harsh Luffy defeat, that we watched Luffy experience a loss on screen. It was closer, like, watching Luffy struggle against Katakuri was much more, much more vivid of a struggle for Luffy for us to see, and a much greater test of spirit for us to see than anything against Kaido. However, we obviously haven't seen round 3 against Kaido. Maybe that will get closer to the Luffy versus Katakuri sort of dynamic, right, that we felt throughout that fight. So that's what I personally hope to see. If the raid doesn't fail, I just hope that that's like a really, like, even more intense than Luffy versus Katakuri, you know what I mean? And forces him to grow even more than that, struggle more than that. Isaiah Davis says, do you think Conqueror's Haki is a prerequisite to acquire a Black Blade? If so, do you think Mihawk had any thoughts about Zoro having Shitsui during 3-day 2Y? Conqueror's Haki, it's tricky because as far as we have so little data on who had... It's so funny because, like, the characters that have black swords, right? Okay, the characters that we know are swordsmen, or, like, use swords in combat, right? We gotta be really vague about swordsmen, right? The characters that use swords in combat and have Conqueror's Haki, right? Like an Odin, like a Roger, like a Shanks. These characters didn't have black blades. The only character who has a black blade, Mihawk, is the character who is not confirmed to be a Conqueror's Haki user. So at the moment, there's no in-story correlation we can really draw from that, right? And we don't have any knowledge about Raima either, although we do know that Raima's nickname in the one-shot monsters was the King of Swordsmen, so we can assume, I believe, that Raima would have had Conqueror's Haki, right? It just feels right for the character, and it does seem like top-tier swordsmen like Odin and Zoro have that in their arsenal. I just don't think we can draw a connection there just yet, but I think it would be really good if that was kind of the route that Oda went. It's just that it would raise the question of then, like, okay, why doesn't Shanks, why doesn't Roger, etc., why don't these guys have Black Blades? Although I guess that question has already been raised, I suppose. Aslan says, don't say Ace, because Ace's death had a different effect. Ace's death was more long-term, and it was, that was, like, it's great that Luffy lost Ace, but you can't really write a story of, like, the main character having a setback once, and then for the rest of the story, which is probably longer than the first half of the story, the character just constantly never faces a setback or defeat again. Stephen Buchanan, I mean, you can do that. It's just that I guess it wouldn't be a story that I would be interested in reading personally. Stephen Bracano says, the way the Strats reached Alabasta was very cool/smart, and still then Vivi failed to stop the rebel army, a failure even entering the final battle. Yeah, that's the thing. Alabasta's final section, just, it's like night and day versus Wano right now. Wano right now is basically they're in the middle of a party. Every other chapter you see all the samurais like raising their fists and being like, we're gonna win! That's an exaggeration, of course. Huge exaggeration. I don't want to turn this stream into like me just like making shit up about Wano that's not true. But that is, it's a different vibe reading the Wano chapters versus the ending section of Alabasta. Now, let's be fair to Wano, right? I think the previous chapter, the Zoro chapter, the Zoro section, right? Not the earlier parts of the chapter, but at least I think the Zoro section, it felt serious. It felt heavy. Not going to pretend that's not the case. And the Sanji chapter, just one chapter ago, great stuff. Heavy, dramatic effect, etc. I still think that the overall tone and I guess mentality of the Alliance has been pretty much from start to finish like, well, we're obviously going to win here. There's no chance we lose here. But I'm not going to pretend that, like, I thought last chapter, I liked the Zoro scene quite a bit. And I still think that, like, you know, even if the raid doesn't fail, I would be happy if Oda is able to find ways at least to do things that will make the characters feel like they're going through something significant, right? I feel like Oda may have, like, because we've already gotten through so many Straw Hats, and, like, it would be a little disappointing if it's only Zoro and Sanji who Oda really has something, like, planned for. Whereas previous arcs, we could trust that, like, all of the Straw Hats, like, something really intense, really powerful, especially with really good story setup from earlier sections of the arc. But, you know, I hope that Oda sticks the landing. Even if the raid doesn't fail, I still think that Oda can, like, there's things I've seen the last couple chapters that make me hope that, like, okay, maybe I can still really enjoy this ending section of the arc if this is the end. But luckily, to me, I still think that, like, this just doesn't seem like it's the end of the arc, to me personally still. Even if it's not, I think Oda can still do some really great stuff down this stretch. Again, the Sanji situation, I think that really gave me a lot more hope in, like, what Oda might have planned for the ending stretch of this battle in general, if the raid doesn't fail, right? Although, to me, if I'm being honest, the Sanji section does look like better setup for if the raid did fail, as he's clearly, it kind of sets up for, like, a nice long-running storyline where he's transformed into something he's not. But, you know, if Oda has a really good vision for, like, a one-chapter fight with Queen where he can kind of resolve, like, a bunch of shit, who knows? Zero Senpai says, how do you see Zoro winning this fight? What could he unlock to help him win? Also, what happened to the Wano report? Is it dead or One Piece dead? I haven't seen someone ask, like, what happened to the Wano report like that in a bit. Not because I don't see questions about it, but, like, someone unironically, I guess, asking about what happened to the Wano report. Because I guess you really just don't know. It's been out for a bit. Wano report's been gone for a bit now because, you know, Ohara and I are both very busy. We're very, very different time zones. We really only have time on the weekends. And on the weekends, we're on, like, totally different night and day schedules and just generally shit to do. That's the main thing with the Wano report. And I guess the other main thing is kind of like, even though Ohara and I still talk, not like super frequently like we used to, but like once in a while we'll do a Hangouts call or something like that. And we still generally like message on Twitter pretty regularly to kind of like bounce ideas off each other, just like check in or whatever, right? So it's more so, I guess, that like we talk about One Piece so much, I guess, on our channels that like maybe we're both not feeling as much talking One Piece like on a podcast as well, I suppose. But I think if our time zones lined up a little better, then maybe we would be both more down to do that. But for me personally, like I don't feel like a need to do the Wano report, I guess, when I already talk about One Piece so much. And I can already talk to Ohara outside of One Piece stuff, basically. So like doing the Wano report is more for the viewers, like more for you guys, I suppose, than like like I guess like a fun thing for us at this point, if that makes sense. Because if we want to just talk and catch up, then we can just do that anyway. And how Zoro's going to win this fight, I have a video coming out tomorrow, so you can kind of just wait on that and see the thoughts that come out of that. But I think I'll make it kind of clear in the video coming out tomorrow. Anime Devil Hunter says, I think Katakuri and Marco set the bar so high, it's going to be hard for King to live up to it. And with so much going on and Zoro's time limit, can King go all out? So, I mean, I think no matter what, we have to see King awaken, right? Because everyone can awaken, like Doflamingo, Katakuri, Law, Kid. We expect that at a certain caliber of fighter, right? I think at the very least, King did impress me last chapter with how he like was wrecking Zoro, to be honest. So I think that maybe it's hard to impress just because, it's hard, like, people can spin it however they want, because the only guy that we really see King, like, up again, like, with, how do I say this? With Katakuri, right? With Katakuri, there was, like, lots of minor stuff we got out of Katakuri before he went up against Luffy, so, like, it wasn't a heavy focus, but it was minor stuff. Like, for example, like, Katakuri just like effortlessly, like, let me think, like Jinbe, Capone Beige, and Pedro all lined up to stop Katakuri. Katakuri effortlessly goes past him, effortlessly catches Luffy, right? That's during the tea party. Ichiji, who's been like actually fairly impressive throughout the arc, he tries to take a swing at Katakuri. Next panel, we see Katakuri's effortlessly taking him out. There's like lots of minor stuff that made Katakuri look hyper competent throughout the tea party, right? That really impressed in many ways. So because of that, we already had like a really high image of Katakuri going into the Luffy fight. Plus, on top of that, Katakuri was verbally hyped up a lot throughout the arc by lots of characters, lots of like Capone Beige to like Big Mom's own crew members, etc. With King, so it's two factors right now, which is that King does not have a lot of battle feats, right? Battle feats outside of the Zoro fight. He just doesn't. So not a lot of things to go off of that impress. And then in terms of verbal hype, not a lot of characters have hyped up King as something special. But at the end of the day, what he's doing against Zoro right now seems really, really impressive. Also, his design's cool, for what that's worth. Marco, I'm leaving out of the conversation because I think there's like no need to, like, there's nothing that needs to be said about Marco. Marco's just by far the most accomplished Yonko first mate, right? Like, through feats in the story and the way other characters talk about him, right? Everyone's got Marco on their radar, right? So I'm not going to say, like, I think that King impressed me last chapter, but then, like, if you want to go through the story and be like, okay, who was talked up more and who did more, that was Katakuri, right, over King, and then even just Marco, like, I mean, one of Marco's feats this arc was, like, holding off King and Queen, for a bit. And obviously, eventually he ran out of energy, but, like, that alone is very, very impressive. So, I'm just going to assume that King's, like, in the same, ballpark as those guys, but, like, does not have quite as much hype around him just yet. But we could get that more over the course of the fight, depending on how, what characters might say on the side about him, or, like, what he shows us over the course of the fight. So, I liked King last chapter quite a bit. I wasn't really feeling him as a Zoro opponent for a while, but I liked what I saw last chapter, personally. Banner says, once One Piece ends, will you just switch completely to Movie Morge and abandon this channel? Also, new Movie Morge when? Movie Morge is the new video. Okay, how do I say this? The new video, I think, is a really, really, really interesting video. And obviously I'm going to say that about all my videos, right? But this one's different. I think that this one's a really interesting video, at least very interesting to me. Maybe not everyone will find it as interesting, but for me, I think that this is the most, one of the more, yeah, I mean, I'll honestly say, I think it's one of the more unique breakdowns of something you see in film that other channels I haven't seen talk about. So I'm excited about this video, and the lineup of videos coming up for Movie Morge are all, in my opinion, really good. Obviously, I'm going to say that shit, but, like, in my opinion, they are really good. Like I think in the break that I've had away from doing it, like, oh, is my dog getting up? I don't know. I just don't want my dog to, like, hear something and start barking, because that's going to ruin this. So, yeah, in the break that I've had, I've been able to kind of, like, get a lot of good, how do I say, yeah, more in-depth type of topics, like more unique topics. Like, I was not happy with the last video I did on Squid Game, and I kind of decided to myself that I'm not going to do more videos where I'm just hopping on the train of something that's popular at the moment, right? So, I think the next lineup of videos is all very interesting videos. Some of them might just be more interesting to me, or people who are, like, particularly interested in, like, a certain aspect of film, like screenwriting or directing or something like that. But, like, I think a lot of them have more broad appeal and are pretty in-depth and interesting. So, Movie Morge I do have high hopes for. I think it's going to take a bit for the channel to sort of take off. As for what I'm going to do... Paco, come here. Paco, come. Paco. I don't know. So, in terms of this channel, there's a few options. And I've thought about different ones. I think if I were to stay on YouTube, I would try and push Movie Morge more. I'm kind of at a fork where, like, I could either focus on other anime and manga more, and I'd probably do that on the main channel, and kind of just branch this out. Or I could kind of go, actually try and grow in a different field. And I think what my preference would be, it's hard because there's other anime and manga, like specifically manga, that I really do want to talk about, and I would be happy to continue my, YouTube journey, I guess, doing. But I think ultimately I'd be happier if I could do it on, movies, television, stuff like that, because I think for me, ultimately, I have a bit more of a preference to, I would like to be able to direct my own stuff down the line, for example, right? So I think that would be where my preference lies. And I think at the end of the day, I don't know, how long I'm going to be on YouTube in general, but I'm speaking if I am, then I think once One Piece closes or ends or whatever, then I may be I may be sticking more so with that other channel once One Piece ends. Damone Nickerson says, what was the average time of entrance who made it past the first round? Oh, this is an old school question. I've not seen anybody ask about the image finder test. Average time of entrance who made it past the first round of your image finder. Mine was 27 minutes, but never went through. Guess I need an Ethernet cord. Know the time was only one factor, but I always wondered. All right, so here's the thing. I don't remember that's a good time from what I remember. From what I remember, that's a good time, and it probably would have made it. Most likely, there was something... I did a stream breaking down kind of like what the make or breaks were for the image finder. You gotta understand this. So you probably didn't get any images wrong even. The image, like, your time is fast from what I remember. I think 27 minutes is a fast time. Most likely, how do I say this? With the image finder test, there's like 1,000 people, literally 1,000 people who took the test, okay? So obviously filtered down to some degree by time, right? But at the end of the day, the margins for what constituted a good image or like a great image were so narrow that, like, somebody could have gotten like a slightly worse time than you, like 30 minutes or something, like 35 minutes or something like that, right? I think 27 is fast. I just don't remember fully. I think 27 is really fast, actually. But like, if your images were not quite as good as theirs, or like they had slightly better images or something like that, then like I probably just went with that person. And there's a stream where I kind of broke down what good images were, and I think what a lot of people didn't understand is that like all your images could even be good, but somebody could have had even better ideas than you did or something like that. I think like a simple example off the top of my head is this. I asked for something like, show me an example of a mystery in One Piece, a panel that shows a mystery in One Piece, okay? Right? So some people would find a panel of like a speech bubble talking about something like, there's, an ancient weapon like Pluton or something like that, all right? And that is a good that's a mystery in One Piece. But somebody else might come up with an example of like the hieroglyphics on the moon, okay? And if you see those two panels side by side and you think about it from like a video perspective, what more immediately conveys the idea of like, oh, one of the great mysteries of One Piece, right? The hieroglyphics panel is a more standout panel than the text bubble panel. And that's like a very subtle difference because the other one is technically right, but you have to understand that like with the image finders test, because it was so competitive, so many people getting really good time, so many people getting all their images like nearly like all their images like practically really, really good. It came down to margins of like, okay, this guy was slightly more creative with the images that they picked, or like this person, they just had a bit better notion of what's going to stand out or look good in a video. And it was really, 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 really tight. That's all I got to say on that, basically. And, there's probably flaws in the decision-making process as well. So maybe I overlooked something or something like that. But, like, it's just me at the end of the day looking at literally God knows how many submissions of, like, so many images. And it was just, like, I probably did make some mistakes. I don't know if I got the best possible person. But I really like the person that I have right now. And I think that they're doing a really, really good job. So that's it at the end of the day. And I think that no matter what, they're like top 1% of people, no matter what. D the Grasshopper says, what if the Act 3 tragedy is Yamato dying, stopping Onigashima from exploding? It depends. I mean, I think we could get something really good out of Yamato's character for that. Hey, come here, Spackle, come. Come. Come here. Oh. Yamato at the moment feels like a... Oh, so someone mentioned this. I don't know who mentioned this. Maybe someone on Twitter or something like that, or maybe a previous stream. So, like, Pell sacrificed himself stopping a bomb from going off, right? So Yamato, in theory, also guardian spirit of Wano, paralleling guardian spirit of Alabasta. That's a cool callback. I think that's an interesting idea. I think Yamato at the moment is, to me, a fairly shallow-ish character, but we are getting more. We did get that flashback for her. I think it'd be interesting to see, if Oda does have like a really strong dramatic moment planned for her. I think it's definitely possible. Anime Devil Hunter says, what if the medicine runs out before Zoro wins? Oh, that would be a great way, in my opinion, to cut the Zoro fight short before it reaches a conclusion, especially if the act is supposed to end in some sort of tragedy or like heavy note. Give me 1 second. We are running a little bit longer than I would have liked, just because I know I started the stream somewhat late, but I think that's mostly on me. Sorry, let me keep going. Okay, Take Inventory says, tell me, Mr. Morge, why does Vander Decken wear a straw hat? Wait, why does Vander Decken wear a straw hat? Why does Vander Decken wear a straw hat? Does Vander Decken... Let me look him up. Why does Vander... Yeah, Vander Decken wears a straw hat. Unless Oda, like, really was just being casual with the design of Vander Decken, I wonder if that's significant. I don't think that's significant, but that would be really cool. That'd be really cool. Really cool, because that's like, if, because we know he's Vander Decken, like, number, 9? Vander Decken 9? So maybe if you go back, like, X centuries, the original Vander Decken, right, had some connect, like, he wore a straw hat as well for some reason. That'd be really cool. Good point. I'd never thought about that. Eight Great Gates Production says, damn, I guess DMV because there are 7 areas that us Desi people are in. Queens, Jersey, Texas, Buffalo, Detroit, and you didn't seem like you were from any of them. That is a great guess. Holy shit. Yeah, and you know what's funny? I used to live in New Jersey. That's actually crazy. I wonder if my parents just moved around to areas that, Indians were in. Or if it was like, if it's just a random way that like Indians tend to spread themselves out over time. Geezer for Sale says, I hope Brooke and Robin help Yamato with the yokai. It'd be really weird if she joined the crew without any interactions with the crew besides Luffy. Yeah, I agree. I mean, like, I don't know if she's joining the crew still. I think that's still very up in the air to me. But like, this would be a start. First people for her to interact with. I think Zoro is the most important person for her to interact with at some point because the dynamic with Zoro's potential grandfather / some relative. Take Inventory says thoughts on French Dispatch, Parasite, Birdman. French Dispatch haven't seen. Parasite really, really like. Probably the best movie I saw in theaters in the last 10 years or something like that. I don't remember another really good movie I've seen in theaters in a long time. I think that Parasite kind of, how do you say, it's just kind of funny that, that was the first foreign film to ever win an Oscar, right? It's just so funny to me that, certain movies just kind of take, it's the right timing or right word of mouth or something like that, and then all of a sudden, a foreign film has become really popular in the West, out of the blue, sort of like that, and it's just, there's other movies, that's, there's more than just Parasite, but Parasite definitely deserves all of the praise and love that it's been getting, for sure. And Birdman, I think I did not quite love Birdman quite as much as some other people did, but I did really think it was one of the more unique movies to come out of Hollywood in a long period of time. Isaiah Davis says, not sure if you're a Spider-Man fan, but if Luffy had a Sinister Six, what would they be? That's a really cool question. Shouts to Isaiah Davis. I love that question. I'm not a huge Spider-Man fan, but I am really looking forward to the next Spider-Man movie, because how can you not, how can you not, I'm not even a Marvel guy that much, but it's we're gonna see all the Spider-Mans together. That's crazy. That's just, I don't know. I think it's really, really, really difficult to not be hyped for the new Spider-Man movie. In some way, you kind of just want to see it all together on screen, even if it's bad. I don't think it's gonna be bad. If Luffy had a Sinister Six, I think it would be. It's tricky because some of these guys like him now. Doflamingo's in there, Crocodile's in there, Lucci's in there, Arlong's in there, Enel's in there. Fuck, it's hard because Luffy's got a lot of... It's tricky because it's Blackbeard's got to be in there. Is Kaido in there? Is Big Mom in there? It just feels like Kaido and Big Mom are almost too major to be thrown into a Sinister Six. Blackbeard obviously is also a Yonko, but he feels just right for a Sinister Six type villain, if that makes sense. Yeah, I'm gonna say that Kaido and Big Mom they're just too major, too big time. Same as Akainu. Obviously, all of Spider-Man's best villains were in the Sinister Six, right? His arch enemies and everything like that. But I'm saying, it just doesn't feel right. Kaido sitting next to Arlong planning Luffy's defeat or some shit. It's just that image doesn't make sense to me. I would say, yeah, I think let me stick with some more pre-time skip stuff. It feels like they make more sense grouped together. I'll say Arlong, Crocodile, Lucci, Enel, Moria. Moria is such a Sinister Six type dude. Maybe Doflamingo. Something along those lines. I think I'd keep the Yonko and such out of it. Dylan Smith says, are there any big holes in the idea Hiyori has Toki's devil fruit and the reason she was gone for so long is because she disappeared through time? Are there any big holes for that theory? Hiyori has Toki's devil fruit. She was gone for so long. So you're saying that she was gone for the last week, for example, right? She was gone for the last week. Maybe she disappeared or something after the Shogun Palace incident. I don't know. I have to remember. I think she was missing at least for a brief period of time. That would be really cool. If that's how she's kind of been able to escape everyone's notice temporarily. I think that would be great. I think I would be a little upset that Toki is actually dead, because then we would not have any closure to her story from the Void Century or anything like that. Yeah, I would like some closure to Toki's story. Paco, what are you doing? So I would hope that Toki is not dead. Damon Nickerson says, my submission never wanted to go through, so I just wanted to know I had a decent time. Love your content. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I feel bad because a lot of people did try hard on the image finders test, and like I know a lot of people, like, yeah, I know a lot of people really went all out for it. I'm sorry, there could only be one at the end of the day. That's just the way it was, but yeah, thanks for being understanding. A lot of people were, some people were messaging me with like crazy bad times, like 50-something minutes, but they were like, look, 50-something minutes wasn't even that bad. Like sometimes we're like, 50-something minutes was actually kind of solid. Sorry, I'm kind of remembering now. That's actually a good range. Like, I think under an hour is like a good range. But some people would message me with like, like crazy long times, like 90 minutes plus, and just be like, but my images were so good. It's like, there's no images that are so godlike, golden perfect that like, it's like, it would take you 3 times as long as like the absolute best people, you know what I mean? Bailey Norman says, how do you feel about the fact that Mount Fuji has not been mentioned during Wano? I personally think the road poneglyph is in there like the whale tree. Yeah, Mount Fuji I think is like a big question mark point, but it's possible, I don't think it was confirmed, but is the mountain god, I think it's possible that the mountain god is, you know, came down from, how do I say this? Yeah, like I don't know if the mountain god came down from Mount Fuji or some other unconfirmed mountain, right? But in that case, if it did, then we have technically visited Mount Fuji, and Odin's backstory actually began there. You know what I mean? Enma ate Toki's fruits as CC. Alright guys, I was hoping to end around 9 EST. I'm going to do 5 more minutes, no more super chats please. So I'll do 5 more minutes, and then basically, yeah, just wrap it. I'll just answer a couple more questions to close. GDN says, I can say with 100% confidence that Kizaru would defeat Big Mom and Kaido together. I don't know about that. I don't know about that at all. Yeah, I don't think that would happen. YouTube commenter says, Zoro got the direction of all things. That's funny. Yeah, Kizaru would win in a race. I agree, Jordan Taylor. Nani says Morge politely trashing people. What did I say? I don't think I said anything. Who did I trash? I didn't trash anybody. It was Mount Fuji, right? Maddie Wolfate? I'm pretty sure it was Mount Fuji. Mount Fuji. Because, like, what other mountain would it have come from? Olerin says, just keep talking until my dishes are done. Okay, I'll try. Chinho Wong says, please do a History Strongest Disciple Kenichi review, Morge. I don't know. I'd have to reread the whole series. Because, like, I have vivid memories of some parts, but then, like, a lot of parts kind of blend together a little bit. And I always found it an enjoyable series. I don't think I ever loved the series, but I always looked forward to reading the new chapter every week. And, you know, it was definitely a series I really liked. I was young, though. I don't know if I would love it at this point. I think there were some things I didn't love throughout it. Rainman says Zoro has the voice of all racists. Yeah, it's very possible. Take Inventory says, Morge, do you want to play chess with me after the stream? I am not a chess player, unfortunately. I've actually, I mean, I know how to play. I think we all know what all the pieces do, right? But I never got into chess, funnily enough. Like, I would like to at some point, but it's also such a, like, the levels of skill to that game and the amount of knowledge you need to learn, right? Like, just learning openings and things like that. It does feel like a heavy investment, because if I tried chess, I would want to be good at it, if that makes sense. Like, not like, oh, like, you know, like, some crazy rating, like a master or something, obviously. But I'm saying, like, I would want to, like, know what I'm doing and, like, kind of have, like, I wouldn't want to be a scrub at chess. So if I tried it, I'd want to, like, try to really get into it, you know what I mean? Remix King says, Morge, did you talk about the Netflix series Arcane in this stream? Yeah, some people brought it up. I saw it, I think, in some comments, but I didn't really get to it. I think with Arcane, what's funny is I'm, like, interested in trying League of Legends at some point. Maybe if I tried League, I'd be a little more interested in Arcane. I've heard only good things about Arcane. I think I've never heard someone say Arcane is bad, which is really interesting. That's really rare. I'm not that interested in trying it for whatever reason. I think, like, in general, it takes a lot for me to try something. I think I need to, like when it's a TV series, like a long-running sort of medium, right? Movies I'll try more freely, but, like, TV series, it feels like more of a commitment, so I need, like, a lot of people to be, like, really, really gushing over it. Arcane, people seem to be really liking it, but it seems a little bit more, like a bit of a groundswell at the moment. If everybody and their mother starts talking about Arcane in a bit, then, like, maybe I'll give it a try. Pirate Hero, Shawshank Redemption versus Forrest Gump versus Pulp Fiction. Which 1994 movie is the best? What I like best is that's tricky. I'm gonna take Forrest Gump out of there. I think Pulp Fiction is the most innovative of those three. It's funny because they're all different in their own rights, right? Like, very different in their own... Like, Forrest Gump, it is, like, its own... There's not a lot of movies, like the narrative structure of Forrest Gump, the idea behind Forrest Gump, that is unique, obviously, on its own. I still think Pulp Fiction is the most innovative out of the three. I think that kind of... it's hard to compare that because it's just so substantially different. I still think it's, like... I think it's, like, the best Tarantino film by far. I would say my favorite is Shawshank. Because it's the most traditional of those three in terms of the type of movie that it is. But I think that it gets the strongest emotional reaction out of me. And that's not what I just base movies on, to be honest. But, like, I think that I have the fondest memory for Shawshank. So it depends kind of what you value. I think Pulp Fiction and Shawshank are very different movies. Pulp Fiction, most innovative out of the three. Probably will remain being, I guess, remain standing out as, like, special in the history of cinema for longer, I guess, by more people. But Shawshank, I think, just tells a more compelling story, and it's one of the most compelling stories in cinema for me. So I like it a lot. Pirate here says, I'm not a huge Tarantino guy, but I do love Kill Bill. I'm really, 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 really not a Tarantino guy. Like, I think I've mentioned this on stream before, but, like, I think over time he started like, he's definitely a more style over substance type of guy. And, you can argue that, well, his style is, like, that's what makes it so special, but it's just, like, at some point, like, the further you go down that spectrum, it's like, at what point do we kind of just give Tarantino a pass because he's Tarantino? Even, like, if somebody else made this movie, we'd be like, this is just not a good movie. You know what I mean? Jester Stage 44 says, I'm not trying to shit on Tarantino movies. But, like, it's like, Randy's here. Best Tarantino movie is True Romance, and he only wrote it. See, I haven't even seen that. And, like, I'm not trying to shit on Tarantino movies. It's just that, like, I think a lot of people kind of dick ride him for the sake of dick riding him. Here's a simple example of what I mean by, like, Tarantino kind of getting away with it because he's Tarantino. As he skews further and further away from being, like, an innovative director to just being a director that kind of, like, gets by on his own brand and his own style, and everyone's like, it's the Tarantino style. All right. So, like, there was a trailer for the recent movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, right? Trailer for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and in the trailer, there's a joke where it's like Leo and his stuntman Brad Pitt, all right? And they're being interviewed, and the interviewer's like, what do you say you do? He's talking to the stuntman. Or no, he's talking to DiCaprio, right? DiCaprio's like, well, This guy here, an actor's job is very difficult. This guy here, he helps carry the load. And the interviewer's like, is that what you do? You help carry his load? And then it's like, he's like, yep. And it's like, that's the joke. It's like, he helps carry the load. He's like, you carry the load? And it's just like, in any, like, for any other director, we'd be roasting it as like, yeah, this is just like really, really shitty humor. Like, lowest of the low humor. But because it's Tarantino, it's like, oh, this is witty. It's like, guys, not everything he does is witty. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying. I'm saying, like, sometimes, is Randy Troy on a move? Dude, I hate moving. Hate moving. It's such a pain in the ass. I hope you hired movers, because if you don't hire movers, it's just like, it becomes such a, never again. Never again. Kazuo Rooney says Inglourious Bastards was gas. I liked Inglourious Bastards quite a bit. I liked it quite a bit. I'm not trying to say that, like, I think Tarantino's not got, like, some really good, really enjoyable films. But, like, I think that a lot of people really, really, really dick ride him. Really, really dick ride him. Alright. So, I think that is all for this stream. Yeah, 2020, yeah, like, Randy's moving this year. I just moved. JD just moved. Jester Stage 44 saying you should check Lucky Number 11 and In Bruges. I watched In Bruges. Don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right. I watched In Bruges. One day everyone asked what their favorite film was and 80% of the kids said Pulp Fiction. That sounds about right. And I don't know, dude, I don't know how much of it is just like, so you gotta acknowledge your own bias, right? So you gotta acknowledge your own bias, which is basically like, Tarantino's kind of like the pick, the favorite director pick, or like the favorite movie pick for a lot of people who feel like, well, that's like a really cool favorite director or favorite movie pick to have. You know what I mean? And then, like, if you get further along into that world, then suddenly it's like, well, everybody likes this guy. So I don't like this guy. I like other shit. So it just becomes, you know, now it's just bias on bias. So I gotta acknowledge that. I acknowledge that for myself, but, like, you know, at the same time, I think I genuinely did not like some of his more recent movies. But I still think Pulp Fiction is actually, like, a really good movie. And I still enjoy Inglourious Bastards. Reservoir Dogs, I think, is the second best movie. But then other stuff, I'm like, hard movers. Yeah, that's the way. All right, everybody. We've gone 20 minutes over time. I think I'm going to call it on this. Did want to do a 3-hour stream, but then I ended up starting way later than I wanted to. So, Gabe C says, yo, Morge, don't leave. I want to talk about movies. Jordan Taylor. No, I don't want to start like a Quentin Tarantino hate thing, because then, like, it's just like, that's not how I even feel. It's not how I even feel. I think some of his shit's real good. Or definitely good. But I also feel like it goes on both ends of the spectrum. So, I'm going to call it. I'm tired at this point. Otherwise, I would hang around a little bit longer. Archangel, I got you. I feel you. Phantom Grave, I will check you. Check what you sent me on Twitter. Phantom Gravefire, I've got an email to respond to. As for everybody else, I'm going to call it a day. Call it a night. Talk to you guys later.